for thought, hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why SOT need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the SOT of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why SOT need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the SOT of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why SOT need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the SOT of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why SOT need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the SOT of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why SOT need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right. Salt to the streets. Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's Podcast. Salt to the streets. Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. And we're back to Salt to the Streets Podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right. Salt to the streets. Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's Podcast. Salt to the streets. Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. And we're back to Salt to the Streets Podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right. Salt to the streets. Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's Podcast. Salt to the streets. Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talk and real topics, real people, real problems.
Boom. And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back to Salt of the Streets Podcast.
This is Friday, April 30th, 6:07 p.m., episode 107.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets Podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary on all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. The best part about the whole deal, it's all designed from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless endeavor to bridge the gap between people and information. And coming up on this week's show, we have a show cat now. There's my new kitty, Tifa, and she's a sweetheart. And she is also rambunctious, and she's having a great time in studio. So coming up on this week's show, we're going to be talking about Arizona recount, the 2020 election recount in the state of Arizona, which is a really weird topic, and we got a great listener request that brought us to here. So thank you. Shout out to who was it that sent in that listener request?
It was
Daddy's Donuts?
It was Dude's Donuts.
Dude's Donuts.
And the guy who runs that with his wife, I know what his name is. It's a very simple name.
Well, we don't need to shout him out specifically. I guess
Yeah,
Dude's
but
Donuts,
also Dude's Donuts, they're a local company that makes gluten-free donuts.
Oh,
and,
man,
like,
I've heard
vegan
fire
donuts.
reviews, too.
Jordan has ordered several things from them, and they've all been delicious.
That's
So,
awesome.
do you just want to
So, yeah, again, shout out there. We're going to be talking about that Arizona recount. We're going to be talking about court packing. We're going to be talking about D.C. statehood. And we're going to be talking about the the presidential address to the joint session of Congress, which is usually referred to up until this point as the State of the Union, but that's
Yeah.
okay. We won't call it that because nobody else is. And, you know, who knows what else we're going to get into in this long endeavor that we do. So anyways, welcome. We just had an amazing pre-show. If you're not a part of the pre-show joint, you should definitely be doing that. We do it right here, same place. We just do it about an hour before we do the regular show. So anyways, thanks for joining everybody, and we're just going to I wanted to start off with a story, but I feel like I told all my stories already.
I
See
told
if
you
I
I have a
have a-
topic that we can start with.
Oh,
Like
yes,
a-
that's
like an
right. We ended
introductory
talking
topic.
about the Rogan story,
Yes.
right?
Joe Rogan, Dave Smith, 37-minute timer. I just set one.
Boom.
So I wanted to ask you this, right? Because Dave Smith was talking about.
Dave Smith is a comedian.
Dave Smith is a comedian, and he said something about us living in a totalitarian state.
Yes.
Right? And Joe Rogan was like, oh, like, blah, 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 that's funny or whatever. And Dave Smith is like,
Just like, run.
yeah, that was quick. Dave, sorry, I just.
She's got her exit route too. She knows which way she wants to go.
Dave Smith is like, no, like, really, we live in a totalitarian regime. Like, we were just told that, you know, that we had to stay inside, and people were watching their TVs every day to see what they were and weren't allowed to do. You know, they're like, that's totalitarian. There is
100%.
no other way around it other than that is totalitarian. And I never, ever considered it like that.
Yep.
Well, you're good.
She's just
Never
cruising.
one time.
Here
So
you
I
go.
thought that
Come on,
was
baby. Come here.
very interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of a when somebody says it like that, you go, "Oh,
Yes.
yeah."
Especially because as somebody who in this last year, has gone so hard on like personal liberty and like holding the government accountable and like all these things where it's like, well, if that's the case, like if our argument for owning AR-15s and things like this is like for a totalitarian regime, like that's for a tyrannical government. So what are
we doing?
And I'm not, and that's not me saying like let's fucking go right now, but
your
because-
book boy's
sorry,
coming
bud.
out.
because that's not what I'm arguing for. But it certainly begs that type of inner questioning, you know, of like, well, fucking,
If we are,
what are
in
we
an
doing here, bud?
authoritarian-
Yeah, like what are we doing then? You know, so. So
feel
that's
like-
what I wanted to kind of pose to you is just whether or not
Yeah.
like are we living in a totalitarian regime? Like are we like what?
No, I mean, I'm going to pull up a tweet here that I think I made during the address the other day. If I can go back and find it. It was something along those lines. America is becoming an autocracy, because there was some autocracy talk during his speech. Said all but a handful of states are currently being run by executive edict.
Yeah.
And I mean, and
Right.
it is what it is. That is definitely happening. You can try to justify it one way or the other, but at the end of the day, what we're dealing with here is totalitarian control over the states.
Which is deeply concerning.
Yeah.
And they said, or Dave Smith said, and so we should pose this, that you can make an argument for that. You know, in the time of pandemic, like that's obviously because that's what we got here. Is you can make an argument for it, but you also have to call it what it is if that's what we're going to talk about. Like that's fine. We decided we were going to go with it, you know, but that is what we're doing.
15 days of slow spread. We all signed on to that.
Which is deeply concerning, and it just
I mean, I get it. I
you know, it's like, what do you do with that now? Like now that I have this information, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
You know, so it's difficult to, I don't know, like come to terms with that almost. You know,
It's like,
That,
oh,
like
crap.
Jesus, yeah, fuck. Like we
made it.
we're here. Yeah.
The key now is
Especially for all the
getting out.
talk. Well, especially for all the talk of people, you know, when Trump was in office, of talking about tyrannical regimes.
Yeah.
He's a dictator and like all this shit. I'm like, do you know what you're saying? Do you know what you're talking about?
Yep.
Because I don't think I did till like 5 minutes ago. So I'm deeply concerned that you don't. So
Yep.
yeah, and it's like, what do you do with that? You know, because there aren't from a liberty-minded aspect, there certainly aren't enough people at this point in time convinced that that's the case to, again, I'm not arguing for this. I'm just thought experiment just for YouTube. I'm not saying that this is the right thing to do. I'm trying to hash something out here. There isn't even enough people as evidenced by January 6th, there aren't
Yes.
even enough people in the United States convinced that that's what's happening to overthrow said totalitarian regime. You know what I'm saying?
That's a very good
So
point.
it's another layer of like, so what do you even do with it? Because now that I'm here, now that you're here, now that whoever watched Dave Smith that agreed with that, now that we're all here, what do we do about it?
What do we do about it?
Because we're all still living our lives, and that's it. Again, it's a big thing because when I start thinking about that, I'm like, well, certainly. Again, I'm not comparing us to Nazi Germany, but most of the people living in Nazi Germany led completely normal lives.
Yep.
They were going to work, they were paying their bills, they were doing things. The system was fucked up and monetary things were different and like all this was different, but the vast majority of people who were not in the army, not in the government, were living normal lives, doing their everyday shit, just with Nazis around them with different rules going on. You still had to go to work. If you had a business that was allowed to operate, you still had to operate your business. You still had to sell shit, make shit, do all these things. So it's like, we're there. If you have a business that's allowed to operate, you still need to go to work. You're still doing all these things. You're paying taxes. You're doing this shit to a government that you are saying is a totalitarian regime that you don't agree with. But there is no other way to operate currently within the United States other than within these confines of the system, which is like,
it
adds another layer of concern to it. You know what I'm saying?
It does, and just trying to like digest this a little bit.
Yeah, it was a big one to drop on you.
It is. Well, no, I mean, because I knew
this
this was
you're
coming.
not considering it, but
I'm consistently considering things like this, because the real problem is, okay, at the end of the day, what do you do, right? Because what we're looking at here is, and it begs the question, how many other democracies in history were essentially legitimately turned into autocracies by a, maybe you might be voting or this and that, but essentially it comes down to the will of society, allowing it to happen. Because even today, there are way more of us than there are of them, right? And I mean, honestly, you get a few hundred people storming the Capitol, a few thousand people, whatever, however many people made it inside. I think I saw a thing earlier today. It was like 390 some people have been arrested so far for that. And if
it seems
we saw what happened when there was we'll just say a few thousand people storming the Capitol, and everybody left. They all got out. They went into their safe zones, blah, 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 everything trickled down, and then they went back to business as normal. Right. And just to prove democracy hasn't fallen. And, it definitely didn't happen. So if, at the end of the day, what would it actually take to stop our country from becoming a totalitarian dictatorship, essentially, at this point? I really don't know.
I don't know
that there's anything you can do without a majority of society being behind you, because at that point, when you have the majority of society behind it, the politicians won't allow it to happen because they cannot protect their office at that point. They will vote with the majority of people at that point to remove these things because they know they won't have a job next term if they don't. So that doesn't exist. It's almost as if our society, whether it's through fear or we have this new, the critical theory type things and the wokeness that has infected people's minds, and it has people turning on their neighbors, and we have these serious societal issues that are just ushering in the era of the United, the King of the United States. I mean, when you watch the State of the Union addresses, even back with Trump, even back with Obama, I mean, it's been this way for decades at this point, but it's never been more clear than it is today. With the amount of power and authority that the head of the executive branch has, we've gone from electing a president of the United States who oversees the operation of the executive branch, which executes the laws that are passed by the People's Congress. We've gone from that to essentially a new dictator that signs presidential edicts every 4 years.
Yes.
And I don't know how you fix that without everyone being on board. And it seems to me that more people than ever just want it this way. And I don't know what you do about that because it's terrifying.
Well, and now I'm just trying to think of what.
Cat is asleep now.
Good.
She knows who the
that
boss
means
is.
She likes you. Yeah, that's awesome. then it makes me begin to consider what it would take to get everybody on the same team. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to run through a list of things. And I'm like, well, what was it? Again, not to compare America to the Nazis, but now that's like the biggest totalitarian regime I can think of. You know,
Try a modern totalitarian dictatorship like North Korea, where there are way more of them than there are of the leaders.
And that's even China is a great thing.
Yeah.
Right? The one thing that unifies everybody to realize that is an authoritarian regime, an autocratic regime that is doing bad shit, is when there's human rights abuses, right?
Yeah.
But
on a grand enough scale.
Right? I think about that. I'm like, well, so what's the human rights abuse that we in America? The border. The border.
The border
right?
is human
but
rights
even
abuse.
That, because it's not happening. And this is now me positing, right? This is now my thoughts. It's got to be, like, it has to be American people. Because it is literally hundreds of thousands of people at the border that are, like, or over 100,000 people at the border being processed all the time, that are being held in underground or underpass facilities, open air facilities with fucking space blankets and shit. Like, we talked about these things the past couple episodes. All this is happening, and people are up in arms about it. They are just beyond upset. People are in tears.
Does it make a single byline in President's speech?
But it's not enough for anybody to address that, you know? And even a few months ago, when Joe Biden chalked up the human rights abuses in China up to, cultural differences. Right? Cultural differences.
Yep.
And now, in the speech that he made on Wednesday, he says, no decent president could go by not acknowledging open human rights abuses that are so fucking terrible. Even though a month ago, I called it a cultural difference. So it's not even...
Gaslighting.
It literally has to be in America for anybody to give a shit about that. Because we've sat here for 3 years now, or for as long as we've known about the Uyghurs in China, and been like, this is fucking horrible.
Yep.
We have corporations here that are giving millions of dollars to this very district that these camps exist in, and people will still pay $30 to watch Mulan.
When we
but
first
they don't
started
give
talking
a fuck.
about it, it was a conspiracy theory.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
Remember?
And then when there's even drone footage of people hemmed up with their heads shaved being piled on trains, it's a cultural difference. Don't worry about
Cultural
that.
differences.
They're still re-education camps. It's not a big deal.
Yep.
Not a big deal. No problem, right? There are fucking Vice documentaries about people in North Korean prison camps in Russia that don't even know they're not in North Korea anymore.
Word.
We're like, it's no big deal. It's isn't that
whatever.
fucked up
It's
that they're doing that, you know?
We're not hanging out there for 20 years
and
like we are in the Middle
that's
East.
what I'm saying. Like, so I don't even understand. And not that I don't understand, I don't know. I truly don't know what could happen.
I do.
Via government in America that would cause people to be like, well, we really are living in a totalitarian. It's time to rise up. These people with AR-15s are not crazy because now we're all going to die if we don't. Like, what is, you know?
Okay, so if I had
what
to...
horrible event do we have to come up with for everyone to get on the same team again? Like, fuck.
It's already in the works.
Great.
We talk about it all the time. We're going to talk about it today. Wokeism, the cult of wokeism, the fundamental principles, if you will, behind it, the fact that segregation is coming back, oppressing racial groups is back, and it is popular. And when we're going to talk about the 1619 Project a little bit. I'm going to bring that up. I don't know if you saw it yet.
I saw fucking the woman who came up with talking about how, there are no laws trying to get rid of, the national pride agenda that comes with these, that people want to teach, but there is laws trying to get rid of 1619. Well, that's weird because before Trump, there wasn't any type of decision made by the president who controls the Department of Education deciding what's going to be in there. And now there is.
Yep.
Now there is. So of course there's going to be fucking laws trying to get away from it because now they're mandating it in schools.
So
no shit.
That is an aspect of totalitarian
That dumb
control,
bitch.
right?
That dumb bitch.
And
Ibram X. Kendi retweeted it. That's how I saw it because I
course.
follow him because I hate myself.
Oh, and they refer to him as a scholar in the regulations as far as the Department of Education goes. I'll bring that up later today when we get a little bit deeper into it. But that's an aspect. The purposeful sowing of racial divisions and class divisions that are tearing our society apart. Those things as they continue to develop and grow, because there is nothing to stop them anymore, we will hit a breaking point at which a portion of society says, no more of this. You're not going to teach my kid that he is an oppressor because he is white when he goes to school. That is far across the line.
And we've already seen that. We've already heard audio come out of school districts.
Yes, we
cannot
did.
for the life of me remember where that was from. But
Multiple times.
But we've heard audio from actual people working in the Department of Education in those states talking about how they are teaching white children that they are oppressors. I just don't when I was in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was in 2000, so it was, fucking decades ago.
So long
the
ago.
world was so different that we can't possibly compare it to today because it was so wildly different. When I was in school, it was certainly not a colorblind thing. It was very much everybody is equal. Uh-huh. There is nothing that you can do that he can't do, that she can't do, that this guy can't do, that they can't do. I don't know when that shift happened, when people were apparently, and when it was being taught that way, that did not do away with this person is going to be better at this thing than this person. But if you set your mind to it, you can do whatever you want, which I don't think is a bad message. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
On the whole,
The places you'll go.
on the whole, that's true.
Yep.
If you put your mind to it, you can most likely achieve that thing.
Yep.
That's mostly true. So
And some people, and this is not to disenfranchise or belittle the people who are born with a crappy roll of the dice. If you are born in the hood, you're going to have a hell of a lot harder time
Certainly.
getting out of that
Certainly.
than, say, me, right? 100%. But by stripping it down to purely racial terms, you're skipping over the entire root of the problem that is causing that repression to maintain itself for generations at a time, even though there was nothing legally on the books to stop it. There's no systemic racism keeping them down.
Yeah.
It's societal problems that have just never been fixed. But if you don't address those, you're not going to address the problem, and those problems are going to maintain in those communities. And you can throw out the 1619 Project, and you can throw out racial platitudes to get people convinced enough that it's all because of racism. It's all just racism that's been keeping me down all this time. It's so easy for people to just accept the fact that they are victims and not want to do anything about it and expect people to do things for them to get them out of that position. When I understand, again, I don't want to belittle those people that are stuck in those super shitty situations.
Right.
But if you throw empty platitudes at it, you're not going to fix the problem. It's going to be worse for their kids and the kids after that and the kids after that, and they're going to still be in the same place.
Well, and I feel like...
Go
ahead.
Oh, no, I'm getting worked up. It
feel
feels
like
good. I got the chills there for a minute.
In America, whether it is people born here, people who want to come here, people who anything, right? Mm-hmm. We judge people in the softest of terms. We judge people off of their potential. Mm-hmm. What is important to us is what your potential is. Yep. What are you going to do? I don't care what you're doing now. I don't care what your past was. Yep. What are you doing now? And even that is what people, progressives and leftists, are arguing for. That your past doesn't matter. Your mistakes don't matter. All these things. That's what we're talking about. It doesn't matter. What are you going to do? Yep. What is your potential? I don't care where you were born. I don't care if you have no parents, no money, no fucking nothing. What are you going to do? What can you do? You can do anything. You can teach yourself to do all this shit. We can teach you how to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Your history, my history doesn't inhibit your ability to learn something, to get pretty much any job out there with the correct training. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And unless there is something, as many people have barriers to that goal, there's nothing to stop you from doing that.
The roads that you will have to walk to get to the same goal will be different.
Certainly.
But there's no systemic roadblocks in your way.
No, and for anybody who has differences that are that they're unable to overcome, you know what I'm saying? we provide exemptions and
It would be nice to have programs that are laser focused on individual needs to get individual people help to get out of shitty situations, not blanket policies that we just continue to throw money at.
Yeah.
It's because we are a nation of individuals, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. That is what our entire nation is about. The instilling of the sacred right to be who you want to be and have little to no barriers from a legal and governmental standpoint in your way. Everyone has different societal barriers to get around. And with the proper society set up around you, you have a support system that allows you to do anything you can.
Yeah.
In a lot of communities, those societal leanings, the societal support doesn't exist, and something needs to be done about that.
Safety nets, you can call them.
Yeah, safety nets. For
support.
Yeah,
just
support.
General support.
Like what are you gonna do in? I just keep talking about like the hood, but I'm just thinking like a low income area that has little to no prospects. Unless you go out of the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of those sprinkled throughout the entire country. And part of the problem there is that the reason, there's so many, it's like a revolving door of problems that keep people stuck in this situation. There's high crime. Why is there high crime? Because there's no opportunity. Why is there no opportunity? Because there's high crime.
Yeah.
And so no businesses want to go in there, no charities really go in there and spend their dollars and investments on, in a potentially dangerous area. So they don't do it.
Right.
It would be nice to have some philanthropists that say, screw it, I'm just going to throw money at this and keep these jobs here and keep these training things going on and blah, blah, blah. And we're just going to operate at a loss because we can. Because I am Bill Gates, and instead of doing whatever Bill Gates is doing, he's setting up opportunity zones and just getting people out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the current safety net system is set up, it's designed, not on purpose, but the current design of all of our safety net programs, all of our social programs, do not provide a good way to get out of poverty.
Well, okay. Before we get too deep
Yeah,
on this,
sorry.
because
I might have gotten too deep.
because we were talking about what would get enough people on the same page.
There you go.
to agree that we live in a totalitarian regime.
That's
Not that I'm not with you, but
yes.
let's.
Different subject.
Yes.
I thought I went off a little
You were
bit
talking
there.
about wokeism, and that's
Wokeism.
And you kind of.
Yes, because it all leads back to that. Well, it's difficult to talk about the problem with that wokeism mindset. I know it's
Certainly.
a bad kind of term to use because it's very loose, but I think people understand when we say the cult of wokeism what that truly entails. Like those
Yes.
types of people. You all know your woke friends.
Yeah.
All right, they stand out. What it's become so accepted on a societal level without equal or greater societal pushback, it's going to take over, just like it has in the last few years.
Well,
I mean, we've run a train on us.
And we talked about that in the pre-show of the different people invading people's privacy,
Yep.
medical histories of, why aren't you wearing a mask? Did you get the vaccine? Like things like this. That's not normal.
Yep.
That's not normal to be asking people those things.
That's
not normal to be placing so openly, putting your personal judgments and your personal expectations on people and their private lives.
Yep. That's a
not
sign
normal.
of societal degradation. She's sleeping comfortably on my lap right now. No,
Just chilling.
you got a little basket with a blanket in it. Oh my gosh, that's adorable. That's right.
Chilling.
Yeah, you just
sleeping.
leave it over there in case she wants to get up. Yeah, she's learning who Daddy is.
Yeah, I know she's having a good time. She
Yeah.
kicked it for a little bit, and Colin grabbed it, and she fell right asleep. So.
Yep. She's adorable.
You got your cuddle pal. There you
I
go.
do. I'm so excited.
There you go.
When I'm watching John Wick. No, she's good. She's like a perfect little indent right in my lap.
Kittens
Yep.
are the perfect size.
I'm so excited about having a kitty. Puppies are adorable, but I mean, so are kitties.
Yeah.
I haven't had a cat since. This is like our first cat. I haven't had a cat since I had a family cat growing up.
Yeah.
So this is dope.
There
I
you
got
go.
a cat.
Let's.
Societal pressures. Yeah. Either way, the
Yeah.
problem is we could talk about this
Yeah.
topic alone for 3 hours and we're not going to get anywhere because
I think
how do you push
without
back
being
on
able to
totalitarian?
decide what the thing would be that brings people together, because I think for me, what we decided together was that it would be like a humanitarian travesty domestically.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be happening in America because
that was
because we're seeing it happen through our government to the southern border, and it doesn't matter enough for people to be
because they're
activated
not
about
our
it.
that's because they're not
Exactly.
our neighbors yet, and that was the whole wokeism connection.
Yes.
Is as it stands now, the cult of wokeism is discriminating enough against our own society and tearing us apart that when it continues, because I don't see it stopping, when it continues, there will be a breaking point at which something on a grand societal scale happens that'll trigger people. I don't know what it is, but in the past, if history is an indicator, there will be lots of bloodshed, and it'll be terrible.
And it's not internment camps because apparently we already have those at the border.
We do.
So it's
They're just
not
for citizens yet.
Exactly.
Not yet.
It's got to be
pretty soon. We're gonna be getting put in the boo box.
If we have to fucking, I don't know. I don't even want to pause it on that. It's horrible.
Yeah,
this is a horrible situation. It's deeply concerning to me.
Yep.
I'm not at all advocating for active or imminent government revolt because I don't think that would be a good idea. I think it would look a lot like Capitol riots on the 6th.
Yeah.
And because
it kind of proves that we can't keep our own republic together. Like no matter what happens, we need to maintain the integrity of the Democratic Republic on the other end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes with, and this is, again, getting deep, but I think a lot of it comes with an understanding and an education on the founding, the intents of the founders, and things like that get you to a point where you're understanding liberty in the way that it was laid out in the founding, personal liberty, personal rights, what the government can and can't do, what the Constitution actually says, what the Bill of Rights actually says. You know, it's
and then people standing up and saying, "You can't take these away from us."
Yeah.
Period. You can't do that. We won't allow it.
And that's that's part of the reason we talk about like homeschooling tax and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to have to compete with a true understanding of the founding, of what people meant, of what his rights are and what he's supposed to be doing with them, what the government can and cannot do. Like I know, like that live I did a couple weeks ago, just people not understanding that the Bill of Rights is not telling you what you can do. It is telling you the things that definitely the government cannot do.
Yep.
So the very idea of like, let's talk about the State of the Union first, because this will lead us into that, and that's the biggest topic I think.
We're kind of primed.
So that's like why the idea and the statement of no amendment being absolute is so ludicrous.
It is.
It's like it's at its core, it's beyond ludicrous, because the very document itself is telling you the things the government cannot touch.
Yep.
Like that's what this is for.
It's like actually
that's what this document is for. So much that we can't even change something it says there. We just have to add more words at the bottom. That's the only thing we can do. That's how definite this document is you can't get rid of it. All you can do is continue to amend it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's like when we got rid of prohibition.
Yeah.
You were getting rid of that amendment. You passed another amendment getting rid of prohibition. When you got rid of slavery, you had to explicitly mention you cannot lock people up regardless of their color, regardless of any of this shit.
Yep.
Because it wasn't explicitly stated in the founding documents, right?
Yep.
And that's not... There were many people at the time, many people now, that argued that you can interpret at the time to include everybody. And that's how it should. But so as to leave no question to it, we are going to explicitly mention that you cannot do this for any reason other than, you know what I'm saying, like a punishment of crime. Like, so, like, because it's so crazy to me, that idea, no amendment being absolute. Like, this explicitly, that's literally what it's for.
Once we pass it, it is absolute. Like we can, because when a constitutional amendment is proposed, right, it needs to be passed by two-thirds of the Congress, and it needs to be ratified by all the states. You know, I think it's just it's a two-thirds majority of the states
but
too.
But
still, like on the state level.
Yes.
And that speaks to why you can actually add or remove an amendment, because a plurality of individuals and states, because everybody forgets that state power used to be the most important thing to people. That
once upon a time in
1860 we fought a war over it, mostly relating to the concept of slavery and the states' rights to be able to do that. But
don't do that, Colin. Don't do that, Colin.
But that's gone now. There's no sanctity in statehood anymore. Hence why we're trying to make new states all the time, because it'll give us more senators. We'll get more votes here. We'll get more votes there. But it makes me wonder. Okay, well, you know, if no amendment is absolute in their phrasing, that means they can kind of screw with anything they want, right? But at the end of the day, there are one that I know is near and dear to both of our hearts. The Second Amendment, 2A. We could potentially pass an amendment to the Constitution to get rid of the Second Amendment.
Right.
Right? It would have to be done in the proper process.
Potentially.
That ain't never going to happen. Thank goodness. But like
that would be
all
an
of our,
activator.
yeah,
you would
that
have
would be
enough.
an
You would have
activator.
at least enough people with AR-15s to get the job done.
Yeah.
You know,
when states and municipalities pass all these different Second Amendment restriction laws, it kind of gets a pass because it's so localized in a lot of ways. The federal government gets involved. A lot more people get upset. But like they never have gone after the actual Second Amendment in a proper way because they know that it would never happen. But I guess I just want to entertain that idea for a second because it's just no amendment technically is absolute because due to the way the entire founding of the country and our founding documents are structured, no amendment is absolute if we decide to remove it.
Yeah.
But we all need to decide to remove it to do that. Like
And
we could get rid of the First Amendment. if we
and
want.
it's almost at that point, because I don't disagree with you, it's almost like a word game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The amendments all have finality until we decide that they don't anymore.
Yes.
You know, at the time that Prohibition was passed, whichever amendment that was initially,
Ugh.
they were like, we're never doing it again.
Yep.
Like never again. That's why it's in the Constitution now, because never again.
Yep.
10 years later, they're like, oh shit. Like, that was bad. So
Bad call.
like that, even at the time, that had finality. Like this is it. We're done with this. It's a public hazard. We're not doing it anymore.
Yep.
Like, so I agree.
Concept is interesting.
But I also think that would depend on largely, like your deep core value on the Constitution, your deep core views on the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, so which again I wouldn't. We say all the time, like it's a policy difference. That is a difference in the way that you interpret the Constitution in the same way that there are a few different schools of thought in like the Supreme Court. You know, originalists and contextualists, and like all this stuff. Like there are different ways to interpret the same document, but.
Yes, but at the end of the day, the text is still there.
Yes, at the end of the day, that's
Thank
what it's
God.
for. Yeah, and so I would not tell anybody that they are wrong, but I would say I vehemently disagree. Not with you, but I vehemently disagree with you, especially to the point that this one says shall not be infringed. It even says it in these things. Shall not. Don't fuck with it. So we'll just finish out this particular statement that he made, and then we'll kind of go back to the beginning and start there.
Yeah, because towards the end.
Well, and he also said,
Got real wacky at the end.
said even from the beginning, you can't yell fire in a crowded room. Even from the beginning, there were limits on what you could have. Nobody could own whatever they want. And we talked about this before. That's not true. It is vehemently false. It's verifiably false.
Yep. It's an empty, false platitude.
There
It doesn't
are
actually mean anything.
literal court cases ruling that people can own cannons to defend their ships. That actually happened. That's a thing that you can look up. I didn't do my due diligence to have the court case prepared for us here. It actually exists. It literally exists. People owning private ships and it being ruled they can own cannons because why the fuck wouldn't you be able to own a cannon to protect your shit?
Exactly.
There were literal lists of things that people were required to own, men were required to own from the ages of like 14 to 44.
Yep.
So that you could serve in the militia at the time if it was required. So I don't...
Hashtag wall builders.
It is verifiably false. And it's concerning to me, just as it was when Donald Trump was in office, to have a president that just lies so consistently and with zero remorse about the founding of this country.
Yep.
It's deeply concerning to me. And the amount of things like this that come out of this administration that lean... With Donald Trump, it's like factual things. You're saying shit that is not true. Like you're saying shit that you didn't do. Like that didn't happen, or that's not the way that it happened. These are things... a lot of times weird woke shit that you were talking about that like is completely backwards. They have this line
It's a fundamental lie about the founding and structure of our entire country versus lying about stupid shit all the time.
They have a line, and I wrote it down, that Jen Psaki says
I love Psaki
every
notes.
time she gets asked about police violence. And it is something to the effect of like, and she reads it. She reads it off of the paper. That's like, it's so fucked up that she reads it off of the paper.
Got it ready to go at a moment's notice.
It's beyond fucked up. And if you are a woke person and you're looking at the administration, you're like, thank God for Joe Biden. You should punch yourself in the face because Jen Psaki doesn't give a fuck about you. She's reading prepared statements about far too often black people in this country fall victim to police violence. Okay, statistically, that's not true. Like, if that's what you're saying, if you're positing far too often black people fall victim to police violence, so do white people far too often fall victim to police violence because it happens more frequently?
Yep. Can't say
that the argument here?
That's the no word.
Well, if you're looking statistically and blah blah blah, I know that I have it written down here somewhere, because I was floored by it. I was floored by it, by her fucking reading it off of the paper. I was like, I am just gonna, so I'm gonna look through here a little bit, but I do have it written down somewhere.
Well, I will say, I'll pontificate this for a second, because I think we might have found an answer to the question you just asked. Like, what is it that's going to be too much? What is it that's actually going to bring totality or a majority of people around to this realization and bring us back to something that is somewhat recognizable to the way the country's structure should be? And it's going to be when they start fucking with the amendments, when they actually pull the trigger on new amendments that remove existing, like because what they want to touch is buried within the Bill of Rights. That section of the Constitution. They're going to try to mess with that at some point. And if they actually do, that would be the trigger. That would be it. I think on a fundamental level, I think that's about the only thing that would justify it.
Yeah. I can get down with that.
Because if you can't meet ratification, I mean, that'll be the breaking point. That's when everything will split, which is, again, terrifying.
Yeah.
Tim Pool likes to talk about this fourth and fifth generational war nonsense. It's information war. It's propaganda war. It's like, well, no, the minute they start fucking with our amendments, they're going to be people that go, nope, not in this country.
Yeah.
You don't play with those. Unless you get, I don't know if you could get that majority. Here we go. You found it.
Okay. On the 16th. This was like the second time. This was the second time that she said it, because this is when I was so fucking disgusted.
Like,
that
not
she
again!
read out of her goddamn binder. Because, okay, she was asked if Biden had seen X shooting video. It was the 16th. So whichever one, at the time.
Too hard.
And this is why she knew, because she starts to talk. She's talking. She's fumbling. She's looking through her notebook. So she doesn't even have it memorized. That's how much she cares. She doesn't even have this statement of how deeply sorrow, like the deep sorrow and how upset they are. Doesn't even have it memorized. That's how important it is, right? Mm-hmm. Too often in this country, law enforcement uses unnecessary force too often resulting in the death of black and brown Americans. That's what she says, right? I just want to take this moment to remind you guys, we do talk about these things frequently on our personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter, at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. We also retweet these kinds of things all the time. I watch these all the time. I tweet about them all the time. Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both those things. We also have our Salt of the Streets social media, Salt of the Streets on Twitter, or Salt of the Streets Instagram, Salt of the Streets Facebook, fuck Facebook, and Salt of the Streets YouTube. You're watching us here now. Leave us a comment, a like, share it with your friends. Tell everybody that we're here. If you're listening to this in a podcast form, leave us a rating and a review so that people can find us. Tell all your friends. Watch us later. If you screenshot the review and send it to me, I'll either give you $5 off or free. Whatever it says down there, I honestly don't remember at this point. Just give it free. If you send me a review or screenshot the review, send it to me. I'll just send you a t-shirt, regardless of what it says.
At this point, you can have one, bro.
Every t-shirt.
Just prop us up, baby.
At the end of every show, I do spit a closing line. If you can tell me what source that closing line comes from, you will get a signed t-shirt mailed to you, no cost. It's going to be fantastic. If you are in the Kitsap County area, get your hair cut by Swell Blended. He does an amazing job, Paul. And if you skate, go down to Location Skate Shop down in Bremerton.
Heck yeah.
Okay. With that. Okay, so on the 16th, she says... She's scrambling. I even wrote scrambles, right? Because scrambles. She's looking through the notebook. She's looking through the notebook.
So let me before you say this, April 16th, 2021 was the FedEx shooting.
Okay, so that must be what she was asked about.
It was the 8 people were killed during the FedEx shooting.
Too often in this country, law enforcement uses unnecessary force, too often resulting in the death of black and brown Americans. Okay, I don't disagree with that.
Yep.
I don't disagree with it at all. If that's the statement that you're making. Do they
but it's not.
far too often use unnecessary force resulting in the death of white Americans and Asian Americans and Mexicans. Like, so I don't, because that's the reality is that, and I don't, again, the gets in the whole conversation, oh, well, adjusted for, population size, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That's fine. By the numbers. And again, I've not even getting the whole conversation. By the numbers, more white people are killed by police every single year than black or brown people. Than black people, right? Maybe not black or brown if you add it all together. I don't know that number. Yeah. Black and white is the numbers that are commonly used. So maybe black and brown all together. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I know that Crowder and Shapiro have both gone over those numbers very recently.
Yes. But if that's the case, right? Like I said, are you then saying that far too often white people die at the hands of police using unnecessary force?
And it's
because
it's not what that is not what she's saying. Because
no, it's not.
Because she's not talking about it. Actually, it's
that's
a get out of jail free card.
And that's what concerns me like so deeply about this. And we talked about this in the beginning when George Floyd first died, when the video first came out, the riots first started, all this shit. This takes away from the conversation. You are talking about officers of the state killing people who are citizens of this country for doing something wrong. Bringing race into this at all takes away from the ability for everyone to be activated enough to ask the government, what the fuck is happening? Why are you killing people? Why are police officers killing people? I don't care what color they are. I don't care. I don't care what color any of these fucking people are. Why are officers of the state taking people's lives? That's not your job. You are not an executioner. You don't get to decide when people die. You do not have different levels of competency or expectancy when we're talking about protecting your life or defending somebody else's life. If I'm getting hemmed up, if I'm going to prison, you're going to prison. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I don't understand why that's so crazy for everybody else. Reform all this shit. That's fine. You have officers of the state taking people's lives, and you're so focused on wokeism and fucking racism and all this shit that you're taking away from and dividing people who could actively be on your side.
Missing the forest for the trees.
All these fucking Boogaloo boys who were like, Breonna Taylor, what the fuck? Say her name. Were called fascists and terrorists and racists in the media when they're out there saying the same shit. That police are here no-knock raiding and murdering people. You're a racist. Why are you wearing that? Why are you in a plate carrier? Why do you have that? Why do you even need to be here with that? Get the fuck out of here. Okay, that's fine. I'm here to maybe try and get you to not die if the police decide to pop off, because that's why you're here, is because they're popping off.
When the state comes.
The one group of people who was willing to openly do that shit, who was willing to throw down with the state, was told to fuck off. That's the craziest shit to me. You had allies. You had actual dudes that were there that were going to stand in between you with body armor on, in between the other group of people with body armor on that wouldn't beat the shit out of you. And you told them to fuck off. You let the media call them terrorists and racist and fucking Nazis, and now they're gone. Now they are terrorists, and they can't even exist on the internet anymore because you shunned them. People who wanted to help you, you shunned them.
Man.
And they're gone now.
I've just never heard it articulated like that.
But
that is so... It is exactly the way it went down.
Yes.
For fuck's sakes. I have just, The
one group that would throw down was told to fuck off.
There
was,
It's because that's because Big Brother has convinced them that they are on their side. And the state's hand... Yes. Because cops... the police departments are arms of the state, is the law enforcement of the state. And the state is murdering you. The state is murdering these people. And now we are the bad guys.
It is insanity. It is insanity. Like, I'm telling you that I'll shoot at them. Like, I'm telling you that I'll shoot at them.
No.
And you're telling me to fuck off?
We would never do that.
No. But fuck the state. And why are they killing people? I don't know. Maybe because we're not fucking holding them accountable? I don't know. Am I advocating for police murder? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No. We're advocating
for
police reform.
Did I come out and support of every single person who decided to openly carry a firearm in all of these rallies? Did I tell them it probably wasn't the best idea? Certainly.
Yeah.
Did I care what fucking color you were? Whether you were the NFAC or you're a fucking book boy? I don't give a shit.
Who's the NFAC?
The not fucking around crew.
That's right.
They happened to kill a couple or shoot a couple people on accident, some negligent discharges. So that's unfortunate. Didn't kill anybody, but they shot a couple people on accident, some negligent discharges. That's unfortunate. That's probably why I said it probably wasn't a good idea. But I don't... Like, that's this... what people are
crew.
being told, what the media is telling people is racism and it's terrorism and it's all of this shit. This is accountability for the government.
Dude, this guy looks like he belongs in the Avengers.
He does.
That's
a weird ass vest.
That's some badass. That looks. Ooh, I'm a fan.
What the fuck is that even for?
I don't know. It's like if you get shot in those little areas, maybe it'll work
they're
out
not
for
fucking
you.
around coalition. Excuse me. So my
that's
point
dope.
about things like this, about the book boys, about the NFAC, about any of this shit, this is not terrorism. It wasn't terrorism when they did it. It wasn't terrorism when somebody else did it.
I love this picture.
This is accountability for the government. That's
Yeah.
what this is. That's why people are so fucking scared when shit like this happens. Because that is the
badass.
reminder that the Second Amendment and every single one that comes before and after it is what allows us to keep you accountable for not fucking murdering us in the street. But fuck off, right?
Yep.
Because you're not black. Because you won't say
apparently-
Black Lives Matter. Because you won't
Yep.
stand here and scream with me. Because you won't kneel down in front of me. You can fuck off.
Yep.
Because you're a piece of shit. That's fine.
And it's all just stuff fed to you from Big Brother at this point. Like it's like this perfect combination. I think we talked about it before. 1984, Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World, all thrown in together.
Y'all motherfuckers got to stop writing books like this because
know.
what it is,
They're already dead. That's the
it's
problem.
just motivation for it is what it is. They're just like, listen,
You laid the
listen.
groundwork.
1984 didn't work. This other one didn't work. Let's smash them all together. One of them's got to stick.
Yep.
Like something's got to stick at that point.
We'll write a novel that is the perfect amalgamation of all of those put together. It'll be the darkest thing ever written.
We'll be responsible for the falling of the state. It'll be great.
Oh, that would be pretty great. Man, how often do you listen to like Michael Malice? Just when he's on some of the shows that you okay. I watch his podcast, You're Welcome. I think is what it's called. I watch it on YouTube all the time. It is great. And I used to think Michael Malice because he's an avid anarchist, right?
Yeah.
And I used to be like, well, that's a thing, okay, that's a shtick that you play, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, he's just dying on this hill of anarchism, but he's got things that are worth listening to. There really is, because his main focus is on the fact that the state is always going to try to control the people.
Yeah.
Always. In every single iteration of government, it has always happened, where by design, our government is supposed to stay out of our business and just basically make sure that we don't get invaded. And, you can have arguments about tax collection and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's very, very, it's supposed to be very limited to protect our rights.
Yes.
And that's it. We obviously don't have that. We have, especially now with some of the things that Joe Biden was talking about that will break down here over the next few minutes, I'm sure. It's not the way it is here.
Tangent, so that's, there you
That
go.
was
we
that
both
was
got
healthy.
one, apparently.
You fucking blew my mind on that. It's really funny, the fact that just simply by articulating an idea in a particular way, it can just open someone's eyes like that.
And
right?
when that was first happening with the book boys and stuff, when they started showing up at protests, there were several people that I knew that were like vehement Black Lives Matter supporters that I was like, okay, I'm reaching out to you because I need you to understand the reality of the situation, why this is happening. I was sending people book boy accounts to be like, just look at this account, just see the things they're posting, understand that the last 9 posts have been about Breonna Taylor and no-knock warrants and fuck the state and fuck all this shit. Like all these things, they are not coming from the exact same place, but you are ending at the same spot. And this is what's important, is that you are all here now talking about the same issue. But if you let race divide this, it's done.
And
we are now. You can't fucking. Tim Scott has a bill. They're like, fuck that.
Oh,
We're not even going to debate it. We won't even debate it.
Who filibustered Tim Scott's bill? The current sitting vice president. Interesting.
Super weird.
Interesting. Police reform bill. Filibustered by none other than the great and powerful Kamala Harris, vice president of these United States.
So
I wanted to make one more point on that real quick. The propaganda machine that is the mainstream media, right?
Fucked up, dude. It's dark.
Those are the people that convince the woke folks that the Book Boys were terrorists and they shouldn't be there, blah blah blah, and they shunned them away like that. They put that that parasitic mind virus, they implanted that right into their brain, and so the one ally that they had was shunned away, like you said.
Right. And are there pieces of shit in Book Boys? Of course. Well, first of all, Book Boys don't even fucking exist anymore. But when they did, were they pieces of shit? Of course.
Yep.
Of course they were. They're a piece of shit who work for Black Lives Matter. They're a piece of shit every day. I know, you know what I'm saying?
Buying houses, baby.
They're a piece of shit all over the place. That's not you are not going to find a single group where somebody isn't a piece of shit in there.
And that's
there were
actually the
assholes.
beauty of America.
Yes, there were absolutely stupid, horrible shit people were saying in there. A lot of those motherfuckers met on 4chan.
Yeah.
People say dark shit on 4chan that they don't mean, and some people that they do mean. But that has forever been the part of the internet where people go to say things that challenge everybody because that's what they can do. Because they're trying to... I'm not even going to qualify it. Because they're trying to live the oddest version of the most freedom they can possibly find. And the First Amendment is the freest thing that exists right now. It's the one thing that isn't being consistently attacked from every fucking angle. So that's
only big tech is attacking.
When you have nothing else in your life, 4chan is what you have. And you are going to say really dark, fucked up shit because that's what you have the freedom to do. That's what you can control is whatever you want to say, where you're going to say it. And at 4chan, no one's going to do shit about it until you fucking kill a bunch of people.
Yep.
So, again, of course there are pieces of shit there. But there are a lot of pieces of shit in Black Lives Matter too. And they're not all pieces of shit, just like not all the Book Boys are pieces of shit. But the fact that something as insignificant as race was able to destroy potentially the most powerful outside political coalition that could have existed in modern time since maybe fucking the Black Panthers. Like, can you imagine if you had Black Lives Matter and the Book Boys team up to make some type of outside political coalition?
Oh, man.
Like, what the fuck?
That would be the most powerful
That's the Black
force.
Panthers. That is the Black Panthers that allows white people to hang out with them. Like, that's what that is.
Yep. Man.
We want to talk about the power of the Black Panthers, and if we didn't allow the government to kill them, imagine if the Black Panthers were legally allowed to own AR-15s, fucking every one of them. Imagine.
Yeah,
would have been a completely goddamn different story. And
history would have been written much differently.
That's what you're talking about when you're talking about the Book Boys being able to team up with Black Lives Matter, unfettered by the mainstream media.
Yep.
That's what you're talking about. Shit that, like, will make legitimate change because people aren't just scared. White people aren't just scared that shit's being destroyed. Everybody's fucking scared. Everyone's fucking scared because shit is fucked up, and these people with AR-15s and plate carriers on are standing in front of everybody saying, no, we're changing shit.
Yep.
It's changing now because this is done. But they were told to fuck off. So,
God, that is just... I got chills just thinking about it. Like, that would be powerful.
And that's part of why when this first happened, I was like so spun up, you know. And I talked about this type of thing a lot in way less eloquent words because I was still.
That's very refined.
So much was changing for me. So much was changing for me that I was trying to understand. How I felt about this, why I felt this way, and that's it. Like that's because the mainstream media that is consistently angling to support Black Lives Matter destroyed their one opportunity for legitimate governmental change in the most American fashion anybody could possibly imagine.
Yep. God, that's depressing.
On a road paved with AR-15s.
Ooh. Bro, if that could have happened. Because what we're talking about here essentially, you remember when Trump used to say the press is the enemy of the state?
Yes.
Right? And that's very... Because the problem, we've talked about, I think this before, like...
The people, man. The press is the tool of the state.
The state is the enemy of the people, and always has been. Because the state exists to keep you in line with where they want you, so they can maintain their grip on power. And if anything, they have gotten exponentially better at their manipulation games to make sure a portion of society is always in their corner.
Yeah.
Whether that's through safetyism, public health, terrorism, it's all through fear and profits, essentially, at that point. It's the combination of...
COVID-19, Book Boys, Russia, China,
If
North
it bleeds,
Korea.
it leads, and the state sees that and goes, those are our friends.
All
right
these
there.
fucking shootings.
Yeah.
It wasn't odd, like, the lack of coverage in shootings, and this is a slight shift, and then we'll
get back.
Right? Wasn't it odd? The immense lack of coverage of of mass shootings that was happening prior, like in the months leading up to all the executive orders.
Yeah.
But they didn't go away. They're still very prevalent. America's
Yep.
still the 28th, as we'll find out, 28th in leading gun violence in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if that was still supposedly happening all the time, now it's like every day there's a story of that.
Yep.
Leading up to it, it wasn't. It was all Corona all the time, which, like,
Yeah.
certainly Corona was a big story. But if
But it
mass
got a
shootings
lot
are
of
happening
people
all
on
the
their
time,
side.
it seems odd that there was such little coverage of that, and
Yep.
now it's fucking constant.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I'd be curious too because
the political
what
winds are
were
changing.
yes, they are. What were the? I wonder what the actual numbers were for quote unquote mass shootings.
When
you
you
know, 4+ during
Right.
that first year of Corona.
They happened in places like fucking Kenosha with
Yes.
Kyle
Kyle
what's his face?
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Rittenhouse. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's because that's how that shit happened. People
Yep.
were dying at protests. People were dying in riots and fights, in fucking crime waves. Like, that's how people were dying last
Yep.
year. That's why violent crime went up, is there was just so much insanity.
Yep. Every single insurrection that happened in Portland and Washington State, you know, when they firebombed the ICE building, you know, all around the country, every single one of those quote unquote mostly peaceful protests that
Yeah.
devolved into riots was technically an insurrection, because what is an insurrection?
Yeah.
It's a rise against the state. And if those powers are fighting against the state and they're trying to firebomb the federal court building, they're trying to burn all these things down. There was another one just this last week, maybe 2 weeks ago in Portland, where they tried to burn down another ICE facility. You know, actually lit it on fire. Mind you, thank God now we know why. Maybe all those buildings are stone because they don't light up like a tinderbox on the inside if you attack them from the outside. Might have been some forethought on their part. But it all leads back to the state being the problem.
It's like the government buildings in Dread. You know,
Dread.
Judge Dredd. They talk about.
Are you talking about the new one?
Yes.
I've never seen the new one.
Okay, so that's fine, but in that they talk about how all the buildings are made of concrete that are X amount of feet thick.
There you go.
Isn't that weird?
Isn't it weird? 'Cause I'm fairly sure they're all built that way now. Oh, for God's sakes. Okay, so let's go back to let's rewind the tape, and let's talk about this thing kind of, because I know you work chronologically for the most part, right?
Yes.
I want to open up the discussion about the State of the Union address. I'm going to plant my flag there.
We're
is the
calling
State
it
of the
that.
Union
It's
address.
State of the Union.
The main theme, and he opened up with it, was crisis and opportunity. There's another word for that. There's another phrase to go with that. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Right.
When you open up your speech with, we're gonna be here talking about crisis and opportunity. That I just heard that and I was like, are you kidding? Did you just say the quiet part out loud?
Yeah.
Because that, after, the first part of the speech was just his laundry list of how he's going to spend $10 trillion. How he's proposed a $10 trillion spending plan within his first 100 days in office, which I think has got to be it's definitely a record.
Definitely a record.
I don't know what the ratio is there, but 100 days, 10 trillion, that just seems like a perfectly, a lot of good round numbers there.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts at the beginning when he opened up with that, or did it just kind of blow over?
Yeah, no, it wasn't something that that didn't hit for me.
Okay.
But thinking back on it now, certainly he would talk about something terrible that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to do to fix that. And this is something terrible that's happening.
It's
This is what I'm going to do. But it
political kind of template to work off of.
Yes, but they did. It was all an immense spending of money. That's
a lot.
That was the new answer. I think the only thing that I heard that wouldn't cost more money was when he was talking about retaining the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act and also lowering drug prices, bargaining for lower drug prices and taking the savings on the drug prices and using that for the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. And he said, and we can do it with no cost.
No cost.
That was, I think, the only time that I heard him say it would not cost anything, because I think of that was, and it can be paid for with the tax raise in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be paid for if we have these people just pay their fair share. Mm-hmm. And if these people just do this, all these things we paid for. It won't add to the national debt.
Yep.
We'll
give the IRS billions of dollars so they can become even more. They could become thuggish tax collectors like the old Roman tax collectors and the tax collectors of the for lack of a better term, the Dark Ages. But we'll get to that as
we're going to take that investigative wing that everyone just learned about it, and now we're going to add an enforcement wing to it.
Woo!
Have fun!
But they're only going to come after billionaires. They're not going to come after you.
I would never do that. Make less than $400K, you definitely won't see one of these enforcement people. Definitely not.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Good luck. Godspeed.
So, the first thing I wrote down here was that he took credit for the vaccines, right? For like where we're at now. I have about 100 million all these days, and I don't blah, blah, blah. That's fine. We've talked about this. That it's the same thing. I wrote down Biden is to vaccines as Trump was to the economy boom in 2017.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. When Donald Trump came into office, a year later, he's like, "This is the best economy ever." If it wasn't for me, then it wouldn't have been this way. And we sat here and we said, "That's all well and good, but you are the president." But this is also following an upward trend that started during the Obama administration.
Yep.
This is the exact same thing. Mr. Biden, you are the president. Vaccines are going out. However, you are following a natural trend that began before you were in office when Donald Trump was still the president.
Yep.
It's literally the exact same thing. And it's crazy. That's a very wild argument, you know?
It is totally insane.
Yes.
And I think it was one of the first things. Oh, the first thing I tweeted about when I was live tweeting this was politicians and political appointees clapping for themselves as they walk in the building is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. Crisis and opportunity, state government, private sector, responsible for logistics. Okay, so state governments and the private sector are the ones who are responsible for the logistical workings of the vaccine rollouts, not the executive branch. The executive branch did one thing and one thing only, and that was create contracts to procure X amount of vaccines, which were already done when Biden came in the office, and he procured more, which, good on him. I'm very glad that we did that. We've talked about the contracts, selling to the U.S. before you sell abroad, blah, blah, blah.
The vast majority of Operation Warp Speed was logistical.
Yes.
The vast majority of it.
And it was up to the state governments to determine how they wanted to do the rollouts. Biden had almost nothing to do with it. He had
and Trump was catching mad shit for that.
Yes,
he was saying the state's there, just tell us what you need and we'll get it to you. And you had that guy who worked for the Air Force, I think, who had the fucking hard top haircut, and he stayed out there, and he's like, I swear to God, we have all the shit, just tell me what you need.
Exactly.
And they stayed catching shit for it.
Yep.
That's very interesting. That did happen.
It did happen, and that's, people forget. Like, there was somebody that had commented on that one. It was like, nice to have a POTUS that didn't screw that up. I didn't bother. I didn't even bother trying to reply to that because it's such an ignorant statement. Because no, the POTUS had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
If you are very happy with your vaccine rollout in your state, thank your governor. Thank your governor and your state legislature because they were the ones that made that all happen. The executive branch had nothing to do with it except stock up the supplies so the state could order it.
Yeah.
Oh, Tifa's getting she finally woke up. Now she's getting frisky. All right, kiddo, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Want to play with some fingers? What was my next tweet on that one? Because these are my chronological order. 6% growth when you're starting from a kneecap position. Oh yeah, because he was bragging about the 6% growth over this past year.
Yes.
Which obviously, when you're starting from an economy that is almost completely shut down, 6% growth is not something to be proud of. It should be 60% growth because everything is open again and the economy can operate freely.
And he said something similar about the amount of jobs that were created in the first
jobs.
The most amount of jobs created in the first 100 days ever. Okay, until everybody who lost their job during Corona has their job again, you have not gained any jobs. You've not created any jobs.
Yeah, especially as the federal government.
You are still at a net loss, a net deficit of jobs because unemployment is not back down to like fucking 5% or whatever it was, 2%, 3%.
I think it was like 3.
Whatever the fuck it was. Until you are back there, you have not created a single goddamn job.
Yep.
Even if somebody's getting a new job that didn't exist before, they had a job before Corona, they have a different job now. You didn't create a job. Nope. That person has a job now. That's all there is. You have not created a single goddamn job.
Yep.
And that's outside of the conversation of who really creates jobs, the state or
Exactly.
that's completely outside of that. Even if you do want to take credit for it, you haven't made a single goddamn job yet. Not one.
Not one.
Still running in a net deficit for jobs. So that's pretty interesting. They also talked about how we kept our key commitment for $1,400 checks when we got in office. Really? Because I'm pretty sure that you said it was going to be $2,000 checks as soon as those two senators from Georgia got into office. And then they got into office, and then you fucked around for like 5 weeks before anybody got any money or any fucking bill was signed.
Well, we already gave you 600,
You
so
definitely
you only
kept your
need
key
400
commitment
more,
on that, right?
1,400 more.
That's really interesting, yeah.
And there were literally, I know people that the only reason they made it was because they got their stimmies.
Yeah.
Like barely made it. And it was just because that tiny little pittance of a, $1,400, $600. What was the total of all the different stimmy checks? Because there was really only
Originally there was
right?
$1,200 checks.
Yep.
So that's $1,200, and then there was the
600,
$600, and then the $1,400.
So you're talking
$3,200
for
one person.
for telling you can't work for a year.
Over a year.
That seems like, even money right there.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I love the fact that the paper notes from work have made a triumphant return.
These are my original paper notes from last year at this time when we did Corona. That's what these are. I held on to these this entire time.
I'm so jazzed.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm trying to find.
Kitty's eating my
is
watch.
them talking about
Vicious.
Yeah.
Going to town. Hey kid, calm down. That's like metal and stuff. Can't be good for your teeth.
Yeah. Either way, I have notes here that, given the appropriate amount of time, I can find quotes from people talking about, like, all you have to do is tell us what you need. It's being handled through this, like, through the logistics department of Project Warp Speed. Yeah.
That was the guy who was the Surgeon General.
No.
But I know
He
he's
had a
like the
fucked
flat
up
top
name.
dude.
Yeah,
And then once
he had a fucked up name.
And then once he kind of got out and was replaced, he had come out publicly and said something else about like the response or something like that. I can't remember what the hell his name was. I'm not gonna bother
Worth
trying
it.
to look it
No,
up.
we'll go back. We'll talk about it another day. Anyway, 6% growth. Then they started talking about the American Jobs Plan, how it's going to create jobs. Lots of unions. Like, they're very much a focus on union jobs.
100%.
Excuse me. Buy American. It's been the rule since
America
the beginning.
first.
Yeah. Estimated to create millions of jobs and trillions in revenue. 90% of the jobs will not require a degree. 75% of the jobs will not require an associate's degree. The middle class built this country, and unions made the middle class.
Which is blatantly
Let
absurd.
me give you one really tiny example. Totally anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's saying it doesn't mean shit. When I was growing up, she worked for 3 different companies that continued to get bought out. The first one, I think, was like I Am Cares, and then they got about like Cares of Washington, and then something else. They continued to change names. For like 18 years, she worked as a job coach for adults with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
That was her job, right? So she would also take people with severe disabilities like on outings. She worked with people with disabilities. She was part of the machinists union.
Interesting.
When I was growing up, my mom would continuously bitch about paying union dues because nothing fucking ever happened because she wasn't in the machine. She wasn't a machinist.
Yeah.
But when they were on strike, when there was issues with collective bargaining agreements and all their shit, she still had to pay her dues but didn't get the benefits of these things. And rarely got the benefits anyway because she wasn't a machinist. So again, I'm not saying
how that works.
It's completely anecdotal, but that's not uncommon for people to just find a union that will take them and join that union because the union wants more power. They want more people, more members. So I think that's very interesting.
Yep.
There are certainly many, many, many people that benefit from having union jobs. Many people.
Yep.
We've also seen a lot of people. We talked about cars a few episodes ago. A lot of people losing their jobs because of union jobs because the collective bargaining gets up to the point where you're getting paid $80 an hour for a job that isn't worth paying you $80 an hour.
Yep.
And you're not worth $80 an hour. Welding shit or fucking attaching something isn't worth $80 an hour. It's not. the cost-benefit ratio for a company doesn't reach that level.
Yeah,
So
because if you carried that logic all the way forward, you would have an end product that no one could afford.
yeah.
Hence, you don't have a job anymore.
there are benefits and there are pros and cons to a union. They have their roles in America, but the idea that every job should be a union job so that it's a good paying job doesn't track. Logically, it doesn't track.
Nope.
And we talked about, I used myself as an example. If everyone in my company, if all 45 employees decided we're going to unionize, that would not benefit us. It would not give me a better position. It might make me more money, but there's a lot of other shit that they're not going to be able to do because we're a union now.
Yep.
I can only pay you these things. I can't give you these things. I can't. That's not going to benefit me in the end to have a union representing my job just because.
Because when you join a union, you are forfeiting your ability as an individual to bargain for your labor.
And I would rather be in control of my own productivity, and then I can bargain within myself.
Yep.
So again,
they have their place.
For like the 5th time and the last time, they have their place. There are benefits to having a union, but the idea that every job should be a union job is not a good idea. It's going to take a lot of jobs away. If you made every job a union job, a lot of people would lose their job.
Oh, hard, yeah. And then there would be a brand new class system birthed.
And I'm generally pro-union, just to qualify one more time.
I think when we talked about Amazon's union
Fuck
a couple of weeks ago,
You're having a shit in a bag?
Down.
Union. If you have a shit in a bag, unionize.
Yep.
There's no reason you're shit in a bag.
That means you are literally being taken advantage
There's
of.
no reason you're shit in a bag.
Yep.
Get yourself a union. Get yourself
Unions
a better
are
job.
formed when company leadership fails the employees. That's when unions are formed. Ask the Young Turks.
Those motherfuckers.
I love to hate on them because they're so terrible.
Yes. Joe Biden said they want to create a DARPA, but for health. And so I don't really know. This is when he said it's within our power to end cancer.
Yes.
And it's just essentially like a private coalition funded through the government for them to focus on whatever they want them to focus on, which is weird because government hands out scientific contracts as it is. Like people who get research or money to research things, a lot of it comes from the government.
Yeah.
You know, very little of it is privately funded. Not very little, but I'm proportionally, as far as things that are going to benefit humanity, the vast majority of it is funded through government.
Yeah, because the success of DARPA itself stems from the military-industrial complex, because there's always a need for more weapons and better, battlefield technology, and that's what DARPA more or less focuses on. They're the scientists discovering. Think of like Manhattan Project, but on fucking steroids,
DARPA.
and that's DARPA.
Yeah.
Boom.
So let's do that.
Which, because that comes with both societal benefits and then also some real sweet military edge.
Yeah.
Which is why the government's involved in it.
So like I said, this is when he said it's within our power to end cancer. And I just think that's a weird thing to be saying. Like, I think that's a very odd thing to be saying. If it's within our power, why are we not doing it?
It must be because he's married to Dr. Jill.
And I I'm not trying to be too simplistic about it, but if it's within our power, then why have we not done it? Like,
because from everything I've heard from legitimate medical researchers and things like that, like on Rogan and stuff like that, what makes cancer so difficult to fight is every person's cancer is very, very specific to themselves.
Right.
And we have some broad stroke treatments that have better outcomes for certain specific types of cancer, but at the end of the day, every individual's cancer is going to be very, very, it's going to have to be treated individualistically.
Right.
And I wouldn't doubt that the medical technology could be discovered if enough incentive and funding was available. But, that's, who knows what else is possible.
It's just
at
a
that point.
Weird way to go about saying
it. Really is. It's very, very strange.
And then started talking about the American Families Plan.
Yep.
And so laid out some things here. One of them is 2 years of free pre-K and college, which again, this is like a very...
Because he shit on daycare when he was doing that, right? He's like, you're not learning at daycare, but if you go to, 3 and 4 year olds are going to go to like a preschool and learn, that's how we win the competition of the nations.
Yes. So this is something else that I definitely want to talk to you about. First of all, I want to make the point that it's not free. No. Like, these things are definitely not free.
No.
You may not pay out of your handbook for them, out of your pocketbook for them, but they come out of your pocketbook. But it comes out of your paycheck in the form of a higher tax rate.
Yes. You're still paying for it. You just don't have to pay at point of service.
They are saying, and this is a very kind of convoluted conversation, right? they're saying we're not going to raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year. It's only going to be the corporations and only going to be for these people, right? I guarantee you, even if they don't have to, they will. It's going to cost you more money from your corporation if they're paying higher tax rates. Even if things don't need to cost more, they're going to. Because certainly before Donald Trump, they were paying 10% more corporate taxes. So certainly, and this is the argument from Joe Biden, it's like, we know they can do it because they were doing it.
Yep.
Certainly.
The Bush era
Certainly
corporate,
they can.
Yeah, capital or corporate taxes were like 37%.
Certainly they can. I would never say that they couldn't. Certainly they can. Does that mean they're not going to fuck over the little man because they have to pay more?
Hard no.
No. That is not what that means.
You could probably see some of that happening right now.
And we're going to detail all this on our social media when it happens.
Yeah.
You can find me. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Colin is at BearBirdOffie on both of those things. You can find all of this on our website at saltofthestreets.com, including our other social media. You are watching us on YouTube right now at Salt of the Streets. We have our Instagram at Salt of the Streets and our Facebook, fuck Facebook, at Salt of the Streets. Like I said, all that at saltofthestreets.com. If you are watching this, like the video, leave us a comment, share it with your friends, let them know that we're here. If you're listening to this in a podcast form, leave us a rating and a review. Send me somewhere, somehow, a screenshot of your review, and I'll send you a free t-shirt. If you can tell me what the closing line of the podcast is from, I will send you a signed t-shirt. If you're getting a haircut in the Kitsap area and you're not doing it through Swell Blended, then you are a fucking fool. Go and get your skateboards at Location Skate Shop.
Fully agree.
I'm pretty sure that's it. Stay safe, Dakota.
Amen. Yeah, shout out Dakota. I didn't give him my shout out yet.
It's not free, right? It's not free.
Not free.
I guarantee you. Even if they don't have to, they will raise the prices, the taxes, the something. The little man will pay for this because that is how corporations work. When they get used to the amount of profit they are making, they are not going to do anything to ratchet that down.
No.
They're going to do everything they can to keep it where it's at, as close to where it's at as possible, so they don't have to pay any more money. They are going to fuck everyone over they have to, make sure that it's there. It's really weird.
Because they all have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to increase the stock price so that everybody can make more money.
And especially because prior to like this week, I think, no one was even talking about trying to close loopholes and force the tax laws that currently exist. They're just going to raise the tax rate and then tell you that corporations aren't paying any taxes anyway.
Yeah.
So we're going to raise the rate on them. Awesome. You know what 39% of zero is? Fucking zero. Great. I don't give a shit. That's awesome. If you're still going to be able to hire a lawyer to avoid every single tax, why do I give a fuck what percentage is? Tax them 100%.
100%.
Who gives a shit? They're not going to fucking pay anything. It doesn't matter. It's so...
Isn't that funny? Because they say that back to back. They say, all these corporations, they pay zero in taxes. Yes. So we're going to raise their taxes. So what are you talking about?
Right.
So in other words, you're going to net zero gain?
Especially because with the IRS, when you're filing your taxes, it's rarely, when you get to numbers like that, it's not certain amount of dollars that you're writing off. It's percentages. Yes. Percentages of this, percentages of this. So the percentage of the percentage doesn't fucking matter. It's not a set amount of money that you're paying. It's a percentage of whatever. And if you can write off X amount of percent of that percent, then who gives a fuck?
Yes,
who cares?
Exactly.
That's so weird.
37% of zero is still zero.
And the idea that we have to invest billions and more dollars in a section of the government, the IRS, to try and collect money that people are already avoiding paying is literal retarded thinking. Like I said, you don't have to pay the government more money to collect money that it's already supposed to be collecting. That's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. We would rather just fuck over the little guy and collect all their taxes instead. You don't need to give them billions of more dollars to get this money.
Nope.
If you do it one time, that's enough money to collect all the other money.
Yes.
What are we talking about? What are we really talking about? What the fuck?
But it sure sounds good. The way
it's
they put
great.
It, doesn't it?
It's it's so shallow. The level of thinking is so shallow because if you drop just a slightly bigger rock than the one they tossed out of there, you're like, oh shit, I can still see the top of it. It's crazy. It's
Best
really crazy.
Analogy ever. Investment
is actually this deep, but they make it seem like it's this deep. Right. Tossing all these tiny rocks out of there, all these little pebbles they're tossing around. They're like, this has got to be a fucking lake right here. This is a lake, dog, and really it's just a muddy ass puddle that you can't fucking see the bottom of. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've never even thought about it like that.
It works. That works on a lot of levels.
Yeah,
that's great.
So we'll run with that. We'll keep using that one.
Absolutely.
That's pretty good.
And it works because you could say muddy in the waters, too, by
Yeah.
throwing more rocks in there.
Degrees, right?
Degrees.
Because you were talking about Joe Biden said 12 years isn't enough to compete in the world.
Yep.
What the fuck are you talking about, right? The greatest argument I heard against this was NPR. Swear to God. Like the
Propaganda own goal.
next day, yes. The next day, Thursday, NPR is talking about jobs that require degrees. How many jobs there are in America that in the description say they require a degree, but don't really require a degree. Like you don't need a degree to do this job effectively.
Yeah.
And it started,
A lot of
right?
times it's a filter mechanism.
Certainly, and it started as a filter mechanism to try and get the best people possible.
Yep.
When college started to cost inordinate amounts of money, there are people who either don't have the money to go, don't want to take out a loan to go, for any number of reasons they choose not to go to college, that are more than capable of getting these jobs, that are immediately disqualified because they don't have a degree.
Yep.
And so they're talking about obviously how that limits the pool, and you're getting shittier and shittier candidates because people who do have money, or not a lot of times, but a bunch of people whose parents are going to pay for it, they're just going to eat the debt, they're going to do whatever, right? So you're getting a lot of times shittier and shittier candidates because you're requiring a degree.
Yes.
And then they're talking about how this disproportionately affects minorities because minorities are less able to go to college than are of white people.
It all comes back to race, doesn't it?
Y'all motherfuckers are fucked up. So, so I found that very interesting of Joe Biden saying, 12 years isn't enough school to compete anymore. When I can, off the top of my head, Lucas Bakken, who started and runs T-Rex Arms. That's going to happen. This is
She's a cat.
Yeah.
That's fine. She just rolled over right off my lap.
Lucas Bakken, who started, owns, and operates a multi-million-dollar company, doesn't have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
So the idea that you need a high school diploma to be successful in this country is counter to American ideology, And so it's ludicrous. It's insane to me. I keep saying ludicrous, but it's crazy to me that the president would be telling you have to have more than 12 years of a formal education through the state for you to succeed in the world. Why?
Totally asinine, because there are millions of examples of where that is not true.
You're fighting for citizenship for people who largely don't have high school diplomas because they're so good at working, their quality of work, and I'm not even arguing against this, but they aren't. The very argument is that they aren't lesser than anybody else who doesn't have a high school diploma. So they deserve to be here. They deserve to be making the same amount of money.
Yep.
So then what the fuck are we talking about? What are we talking about? In the same breath, dude. It's like you said, the same exact breath.
Yep.
We're telling you, you don't need a high school diploma to make it. Just work with what you have. But also, 12 years isn't enough anymore.
Yes.
So we need more money, and we have to invest more dollars into the government so that we can give you this. That's crazy.
Give you this. And that's exactly what it is. The entire stance on everything that he lays out on the speech is based off of the government will provide you with X.
Big Daddy has you.
Because you are not capable of doing it. Ben Shapiro has recently come around. You remember the old phrase?
Because the corporations are fucking you over.
That's right. The man's keeping you
has
down.
The man is in the state because we the people is the government.
We the people. Oh yeah.
What a dumb asshole.
We'll get
there
towards the end there. But the old phrase people used to say, the soft bigotry of low expectations, right? Whether you're talking race or whether you're talking income or anything, it's not soft. It's just straight up bigotry of no expectations.
We're talking about that with Larry.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure we were on that beat well before our pundits were.
Larry Dixon, he's been on the show multiple times.
Shout out Larry Dixon.
Everybody knows he is
At
black,
Larry the Text
right?
guy.
So let's just, for anybody who's going to try and throw anything out there, we'll just cut you off right now. He is, in fact, black as fuck. Was expressing to us earlier this week, just his immense frustration with, essentially being classified as an Uncle Tom because he doesn't agree with the modern woke ideology that is fueling all of these things.
Yep.
And like you said, the bigotry of low expectations no longer being soft, openly being told black people can't access the internet. The president saying black people don't know, a lot of black people don't know how to get on the internet. I don't know what being black would have to do with you not knowing how to get on the internet. I don't know
That's one of
why,
the most racist things I've ever heard
because you're
in my whole
black,
life.
you wouldn't know how to get an ID, or you wouldn't be able to afford an ID, or you wouldn't be able to find it or get there, or why? I don't
Which
like.
is also
I don't
a
understand.
statement to the incapability of the social programs that help people in poverty. So it's a double cut on the wrist.
Yeah, and it's very odd. And Steven Crowder, did a great Change My Mind like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. I haven't watched it yet. But
You have got to watch it.
He's dropped a couple good ones recently.
And this one was opposing voter ID is racist.
Yes.
All these excellent statistics from studies from like Rasmussen and things like that, that like upwards of 70% of African Americans support voter ID.
Yeah.
And they went around that town and interviewed people beforehand, minorities, asked them, what do you think of voter ID? They're all like, of course you have voter ID.
Yeah.
Like,
Where's the DMV at?
It's very important to me.
Right
like,
there.
yeah, dudes who are like, if you are an adult and you're paying taxes, you should be able to get an ID. If you're over 18 years old, you should be able to get an ID.
Yeah.
And that's not like, I don't even think it's like a crazy expectation. And that's not, like, if you can't make it there,
Kind of one of the responsibilities of being an adult citizen.
I also feel like an ID should be free, like across the board. If we're going to require that you have to have a license to drive a car, we're going to give it to you. You pay taxes anyway. What the fuck does it cost to print me an ID? 5 cents? Print the shit, bitch. Print it. Give me that shit, and I'm going to leave. If you're going to make me have it, the shit should be free.
Yep.
Then there, in the 6 states he said that do require voter ID, it is free.
Which would totally make sense.
Fucking makes sense. Why should it cost any money? We're going to require that you have it. It should be free.
It's the problem they ran into when they pushed the social pressure on the MLB to move the All-Star game out of Georgia because of their racist voter suppression bill by requiring voter ID. And they moved it to Colorado, which has stricter voting requirements.
More strict, and takes millions of dollars of revenue out of Georgia.
Yeah.
Millions. Like tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And that's the crazy thing. So he's talking to Stephen Crowder's talking to one specific girl for a decent amount of time. So it's just a young, white, liberal woman. They do a counter of all the virtue signaling she does before. It's like 9 different times. And she's like, oh, well, I'm wearing a mask, not for myself, but for other people around me who like don't have the privilege of getting back. Yes, just that is the exact thing. A counter and a ding, ding. Oh, it's fucking great. Yeah. So he's going through all these things, like all reasons, why minorities wouldn't be able to get these things. And he's like, I just don't. He's like, I don't live in a world where I think that black people are too poor or too stupid to figure out how to get a fucking ID. Like, that's crazy to me.
I haven't heard
for
an
you to
argument
think
about
that
it.
is racist.
Yes.
Like, for you to be thinking that and positing that is racist.
Yep. I haven't heard a single argument arguing against the requirement for voter ID that is not racist.
And that's exactly his point. It's like, I haven't heard an argument that isn't racist.
Because you are saying every one of these people
Yes.
is incapable of doing this one thing for X, Y reason.
Well, in the picture of the driver's license and the 2 numbers circled, that's like, this new law would require someone to write down their driver's license number. Could you tell which of these 2 numbers is your driver's license number?
If you have a driver's license, you don't know the driver's license number.
And the myriad of people in the comments, black people in the comments, that are like, do you think I'm fucking retarded?
Exactly.
Like, do you think that I'm a fucking idiot? Of course, it says driver's license number, bitch. Of course I can tell which number it is. What the fuck? It's so crazy.
Yes.
I don't even think you can afford a $6 ID. What? What?
And even if it's
For
free,
what?
I don't think you're capable of getting it.
Makai and his wife just bought a house. I don't own a fucking house. I definitely think that Makai could.
Shout out Makai.
And I'm not trying to tokenize Makai. I don't. I was the first black person I thought of. But like, I don't think that Makai would have a problem acquiring a $6 ID. No. I really don't. I
know for a fact that he doesn't because of the nature of his work.
He drives bus. It's crazy to me. It is insanity. I agree with you. I'm on the same page. I haven't heard a single argument that I'm like, that's racist.
Yeah.
That's racist for
that's
me saying that.
terrible for you to say that.
And you're saying you're doing it because of racism, and that is insanity. Like, so we'll move on. Yeah, you shouldn't need a degree for something that you don't need a degree for.
No.
Unless you have to know the science or some shit behind it. There should be no requirement for a degree.
Yeah.
The idea that you can't be successful because you don't have a high school diploma or a degree is
Mike Rowe's been preaching the same message
backwards and un-American.
Over a decade at this point.
12 years isn't enough.
That's why he started Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
You know, because he said most of the people that they did on Dirty Jobs, you know, all the episodes they did, most of them were millionaires.
Yes.
And they lived simple lives, close to the ground, and they ran a successful business doing dirty work.
Yeah.
They don't have college degrees, a lot of them. They didn't have to go to these 4-year colleges to be a successful entrepreneur in the world. You don't have to do that. In some fields, you do, and you go get the technical training required to do it. Or in like,
you want to be a doctor, you definitely have to go to school.
Yeah, in a lot
Definitely
of professional trades that require a license or something like that. Generally, a degree comes with that because
even
you want to have standards for
even
schooling.
like a lawyer. Like there are states like in California where if you do enough on-site training with a lawyer, you can take the bar exam and become a lawyer.
And I think
you have learned enough shit.
Yes.
In 3,000 hours or whatever.
You learn
to
the
practice.
law.
Yes.
And then you pass the bar.
You pass the bar exam.
And you become a professional lawyer.
If you can pass the goddamn bar exam, I don't care what your qualifications are.
Exactly.
Pass the exam, do the goddamn job. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's meritocracy, Colin, and that's fucking racist.
Yep. And it's also part of the trap that is credentialism.
Yes.
You know, where you have to have these things just to say that you have them and qualify for these things.
Next is childcare.
Childcare.
Low and income people will pay no more than 7% for childcare, 7% of like their income.
Because to zoom out for a minute, this is part of the reasoning behind doing this was to introduce for the first time his American Families Plan.
Yes.
And that's what this is all part of.
Excuse me. Yes. 12 weeks of paid leave, up to 12 weeks of paid leave, which I think is a great thing. And I do think that
that's legit.
The leave system in America is very weird.
It's
very backwards,
yeah.
you know, especially as far as maternal leave, paternal leave. Like, it would just, and I hate to compare America to other countries. I just generally, I don't like to.
Yeah.
But
Apples
when
and oranges,
when you have like literally dozens of other countries that are like, no, fucking stay home for a year. Please, God, spend time with your kid.
Yes.
And we're like, no, get your ass back in the office now.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
It's bad.
But then we also talk about people need to be with their children and how important it is for parents to be with their children. But God damn it if you don't come back into the office a week after you have a kid.
Because
weird.
There was a lot of emphasis on child care.
Yeah.
Subsidizing the child care.
Yes.
No more than 7% of your income, or if you make below a certain threshold, you'll pay nothing. AKA, the government will be subsidizing that for you. They'll be paying it for you.
Subsidies, more and more
so
subsidies.
that you can get back to work.
Yes.
It's like, so now you're saying that everyone needs to have a job.
Yes.
No one can stay home with their children.
No.
And that perverse incentive, if I've ever heard one.
But we also want to extend the child
tax credit
through 2025.
Again, I don't hate that.
And I don't hate it either, but I don't like the argument that's being used for it. And it's a personal thing, but there's all these arguments of like people can't have the amount of kids that they want. And they can't do what they want because it's cost prohibitive. Fuck you. You don't need to have 9 kids. You don't even need 2 kids.
Yeah.
You don't. I don't think it's a bad thing that the birth rate went down. I don't. There are too many goddamn people on the planet. There's too many people here. We're saying it all the time. Like
Thanos.
Whatever. I thought about it on the way here. This is a half joke, so everyone take what it is. Whatever the number is of people we have to have on the planet to have no traffic, that's how many people should be here. That's how many people should be here. It took me 40 minutes to get here today. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, because I always forget, like, the timing
Yes.
for coming over on a Friday afternoon.
Way different than Saturday.
Way different.
Yes.
And I didn't even think to bring that up.
No, me either. So,
oh, man. Oh.
I just don't get it. Like, the idea that you should just, if you don't get to have as many kids as you desire in your heart, you're not living up to your full life. Fuck you. And I'm not saying we should live a China lifestyle. We need to start like drowning babies and things like that. No, that's crazy.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
One child policy.
But I just don't. The fact that you need a government subsidy so you can have as many kids as you want, I think is very backwards. Like, why? If you need that extra money in order to be able to afford a kid, you probably shouldn't be having one, in my opinion. You know, so
personal responsibility.
Just because you want one doesn't mean you should have one. Just because I want 9 dogs, I shouldn't have 9 dogs. That's a bad idea.
It is a bad idea.
Bad idea. Some people should have 9 dogs.
I can
Some
attest.
people, fucking Glenn Greenwald owns like the whole farm of dogs. Some
Yeah.
people should have a whole farm of dogs.
very true.
Some people should have 20 kids.
Yep.
Some people should not.
Because they plan their life out to accommodate for that lifestyle.
And I don't think just because you want to, you should do it. When it comes to kids, there are most things I think that's the case. I don't think with children, just because you want that many kids, you should have it, and the government should make it so. And I think that's weird. I think it's very backwards. There's already too many people here, so I don't.
So let me change
know.
the paradigm a little bit on this same topic, right?
Yes.
So to kind of speak to all of these different things that he talks about in his family's plan,
Yes.
right? The free education, blah blah blah. That's kind of one thing. The subsidies for.
Papa, help me.
Oh, sweetheart, where did she go?
She's over there
She
now.
probably just was like, yeah, screw this one out. Crazy ass
Walking
cat.
around the chair.
I love. So this is cat lifestyle. I'm really excited. It keeps you on your toes.
Yes.
I am like the leave, 12 weeks, or whatever. What was it? How much leave?
12 weeks.
12
Up
weeks.
to 12 weeks.
Up
is
to
what he
12
said,
weeks,
which
right?
I don't really know what that means. Up to 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
interesting,
I guess you
right?
could just have access to up to 12.
So to put it in kind of different terms, right? Because somebody at this point has to pay for that 12 weeks, right?
Yes.
Right, and potentially you're leaving a position that would need to be filled by someone in your interim. Some
At
people's
least during that 12
very
weeks.
indisposable. I can speak very true to this statement. Some people are very indisposable, and if you are gone, that portion of the job is not done.
If I left work for 12 weeks, they would likely
They would miss
bring
you.
yeah, they would bring someone
Right.
in for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Probably they'd hit up Aaron and be like, "Hey Aaron, is there any way that you can come work for a couple of weeks while this guy's out?"
Yep.
And not because I'm so crazy productive, but because to take a whole person out of the production line
Yes.
for 12 weeks is a huge hit to
Really?
production.
Absolutely. So on that note, I'm a huge
Trash cat.
I love it. I'm a huge proponent of like people being able to take more time off.
Yes.
And I am 1,000% open to the federal government funding that.
yeah.
It needs to be efficient for the business to do
It's good for people.
within 3 clicks. A business should be able to just go to a website, a government website, go click, insert employees, social security number, blah, 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 check, done. Paycheck's on its way. It'll be in your business account in 30
Tiny meow.
seconds. And you're going to go hunt for the cat before she gets gobbled by the dogs. All the dogs are so interested. I love it. But I have a feeling that considering we were looking at a $4 trillion budget. Oh, she's just hanging out. If we have a $4 trillion budget at this point, I have a hard time believing that the government cannot find mismanaged money somewhere enough to pay for that already.
Right.
I'm open to contributing more for something like that. That's fine. But I don't trust that the government is spending the money that I'm giving them now,
No.
that they can't already afford to do that if they were able to keep their own house in order.
And I'll tell you what, especially after having listened to this speech, when the next budget comes out,
Oh.
if there's any additional money in the defense budget, I'm going to flip shit. Because in this very address, we have by far the most powerful military ever existed.
Yep.
Like he said that. So then you're telling me we don't need to add any more. It doesn't need to be any bigger. If it's already the most talented fighting force or the most sufficient fighting force or the most whatever the fuck that's ever existed, then we don't need to add more money to it. And whatever we were going to add to it this year, we can go ahead and take and apply to something else.
Yes.
Right? If we already have, I have a screenshot.
Ooh.
This is, again,
You take solid screenshots.
anecdotal, right? But it is,
Life is full of anecdotal cases.
yes, so let's see.
An anecdotal case is only anecdotal until enough of them amass themselves to become a trend.
Photos.
That's the key to anecdotal cases. If you have enough of them, it becomes kind of a truism.
Sorting them around. I don't understand why it does this.
My phone still. Oh, that's too funny. One of my work buddies texted me. He ran into an old employee. He's like, "What's this guy's name? What's this kid's name again?" He's like, "Oh yeah, he's hanging out in front of Domino's Pizza."
Albums. There we go.
Yeah, I still can't keep track of how my phone tracks pictures anymore. Half the time I open up my photos thing, and I don't recognize what it's showing me. It's some
Yeah.
weird album thing, and it's shifted over. Oh, good Lord. Oh, Kitty, you want to come back up and see Daddy? She's like, no, I just want to play with your knee.
So it's a screenshot, and when I find it, it's a story, again, anecdotal, but a story of a service member talking about... Here we are. This is, again, anecdotal from the internet. At a range, late in the fiscal year, we're set up for both the Bradley crews to conduct gunnery and the dismount squads to do their own training. By the end of training, we still had ammo, thousands and thousands of rounds of various calibers. Well, we tried to burn through it. So much 25 millimeter, we had Bushmasters going down left and right, literally burning down guns. Burnt out 240 barrels. I fired so many, and it takes...
That's a lot.
like 10,000 rounds to burn out a barrel before you need to switch it out if you're talking about a standard AR-15.
That's how you get a misfire, by the way.
Yes. I fired so many Chalk 203 rounds I can't count. I saw senior NCOs telling soldiers to bury ammo in the desert because, as anyone that worked in the government will tell you, if we don't use it, we lose it. Yep, you don't use what money, resources, etc. you are allocated in one fiscal year, you won't get as much the following year. This is the waste I'm talking about. Now translate that story across the entire government, having the same mindset of use it or lose it and use your imagination.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. I could attest for my time, man. Use it or lose it. Otherwise, you don't get more next month or next quarter. It's messed up. It's a perverse incentive.
So just to talk about bloated government, and for them to continue to talk about more and more money into it. Like, this won't go away. This does not end. This money doesn't stop flowing. And that's, as much as everyone hates conservatives and hates Republicans when they're talking about fiscal responsibility, reallocating funds, like, this is what's talking about. We don't need to continue to add and add and add more money. Something has to be fixed. At least one thing has been fixed. Ooh, Kitty, don't do that. At least one thing has to have been fixed. At least one thing.
Yep.
You're telling me there isn't one thing that could stand less money so we can reallocate it somewhere else. Not one thing. Not one. Everything gets worse all the time, consistently. That's a crazy message to be giving out to people.
What is the one organization that is not subject to the IRS auditing it?
Is it the government?
The federal government's budget.
Weird.
Interesting how that whole system works. There is no one that is capable legally in the statutes of holding the government responsible for the money that they spend.
This is a good night phone call. I'll be right back.
It's a good night phone call. Oh, sweet baby. I will harp on a point here that I believe was made multiple times throughout the entirety of Joe Biden's speech. And that every time he talks about, spending, essentially, we're talking about, he brings it up as investment. We're going to invest in this. We're going to invest in childcare. We're going to invest in people's families. We're going to invest in American workers. Investment is just code for more spending. Whether or not that spending has any legitimacy to, if the means justify the ends, is there actually going to be a beneficiary of the spending on the back end? Can you prove to us that this investment that we are making is going to have an ROI that is worth taking that plunge? An ROI being the return on investment. Every investment should have a return. And if you are not getting a return, that is a bad investment. We are that $4 trillion federal budget that we talked about. That is full of investments that have, to this date, not paid off in any feasible fashion. Otherwise, we wouldn't, the war on poverty, we would not have spent over $20 trillion on the war on poverty to have communities that are left in perpetual poverty with no sign of getting out. We would not have school systems that now all of a sudden are requiring more than 12 years of education. If the education you got within that 12 years was worth anything, if it's worth a damn, 12 years would be sufficient for you to go out and become a prosperous human being and to be able to contribute a capital to the overall GDP, which makes the country that much stronger, that much more competitive. There's a lot of talk about competitiveness. And to be competitive, we must invest in Americans. We must invest in our infrastructure. We must invest in our schools and our families. That's all well and good. It sounds really nice. But without proof in the pudding, without a return on that investment, we should be pulling those investments back, reassessing, and coming at them from a different approach. I mean, I kind of got us all off track there for a while. They're talking about essentially the war on poverty. The war on drugs is another great example. How many trillions of dollars has been spent over the decades fighting the unsuccessful war on poverty that has done nothing but empower cartels, gangs, other
And
criminals.
lock up minorities.
Lock up minorities. What?
Oh
yeah, and lock up minorities.
The war on drugs.
Yes.
You think I'm coming in? Lock up minorities.
It's like, Jesus, what did I say?
No.
So I was just talking about investment. There's a lot of focus on investment, right? And there's no return on investment. That's the problem with a lot of these programs. They don't do any good to just throw money
on your plate carrier.
Oh, that's just great. That shows it's a good plate carrier, I guess. But we need to not, because what we're talking about here, American Rescue Plan, something in the nature of $1.9 trillion. The American Jobs Plan,
It's
over $2 trillion.
Yeah.
Roughly they're about $2 trillion a piece. The Families Plan, the Jobs Plan, and the Rescue Plan that was passed. $6 trillion on top of a $4 trillion budget already. That's $10 trillion proposed spending in the first 100 days of an administration.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Where does that money come from? We're just going to suck it out of the millionaires and billionaires.
Yep.
Well,
they're going to make.
Did you say anything about trillionaires? Because
No.
we're talking $10 trillion. There's not enough money in the entirety of the nation that you could suck out of that without completely defunking the country overnight.
No, because even. Sorry, I thought I had less of this. That's why I was doing that. Even when they're talking about the amount of taxes that corporations didn't pay, they're still talking about billions of dollars.
Yes.
So it's.
So
Like
where's
I
the
said,
trillions
even by
coming
their
into
own
play?
math, like that doesn't add up. You
Nope.
know, it has to come from somewhere, and they're just banking on it. We'll just add it to the deficit. We'll just worry about it. We'll just keep racking it up to the debt. And we've talked about.
Don't worry about inflation.
Maybe we didn't talk about in here, but we talked about it in our
Possibly
Crypto
offline.
Crusaders group chat.
Crypto
about
Crusader 2, the
how,
return.
Yeah, exactly, the return. I was listening to the Wall Street Journal, and they were talking about the list of things internationally that is becoming more expensive. How even though domestically the Fed is able to keep inflation rates low and keep interest rates low, they cannot do anything about the global economy.
Nope.
And so even if it doesn't look like the American dollar is being devalued because things are still generally the same here, around the globe, it will cost you more money to buy things and you will receive less money when you sell things.
Yep.
That is an undeniable fact.
Hard yes.
This is a sign, an undeniable sign of undeniable inflation that does come with adding trillions of dollars to your deficit, devaluing your currency by doing so, and not doing anything to address it.
Yep.
This can only work like that for so long. Things can only continue like that for so long until something has to be done. And I don't know what that something is, but I don't particularly want to see it.
No. That sounds incredibly terrifying. But if the important thing to remember about all these different new spending items, these are proposals that he wants Congress to take up, because ultimately Congress controls the strings to the purse.
And this isn't even actually like legislation that he's crafted, where he talked about, I don't know whether or not this is true, that he sent a piece of legislation to Congress for immigration for them to consider. I don't think that that's the case. I think that it likely looks just like this, that it's a proposal, a wish list, if you will.
A fact sheet that they're so fond of publishing.
It's just a one sheet that we're sending out, telling you what we want to see, and then whatever gets to the desk we'll sign. You know? And they've given the same runaround for all these other commitments that they said they were going to keep up to, whether it is the police oversight commission or like all these different things, the police reformation bill that they're continually kicking down the road, saying like, oh, we're just waiting for Congress. We absolutely want to sign. Of course we want to do it. Of course we do. We committed to doing it. We have to wait for Congress. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's virtue signaling. They want to raise the top tax bracket to 39.6%. I don't.
You can go
I don't care how
Screw
much money you
yourself.
have. You're talking about someone taking 40% of the money that you made that
Yeah.
year. That's fucking insane.
That's
insane.
absolutely. And on top of that, you're already taxed on the everyday things that we don't think about.
Yes.
Gas, food. I mean, well, food technically isn't supposed to be taxed. Certain types of food, processed foods and stuff like that are. But, you know, you're taxed on every other transaction you make
Yes.
throughout your entire life. And then depending on what state you're at, you're getting state taxes too. It's absolutely insane the amount of money they are talking about stealing from your pockets to pay for their boondoggles
Yeah.
that we cannot confirm that they have any actual tangible results at the end.
Where you at, little kitty?
She's back in the backpack somewhere.
Said that America can't handle the world's problems all alone. They have to start getting assistance from people around the globe, and then talked about different ways that America is going to address the world's problems. They
Yeah, I
want
thought
to
we
become
weren't the world police.
we want to become an arsenal for the vaccine, as we are an arsenal for democracy around the world. Did we not just say that we cannot handle the world's problems all on our own, but we are the arsenal for democracy that we have become, right? Didn't we just talk about ending the forever wars and involvement of all these other countries and all this shit? Because that's what it looks like when we're the arsenal for democracy. We are an arsenal. We are a bunch of motherfuckers with guns.
Yes, we
An
are.
arsenal. That's it. So I don't
Democracy or else.
talked about climate change as a global issue. This I actually appreciate,
Yeah.
right? That it's very rarely acknowledged that America is not the whole world's problem for climate change, and that solving 15%, and that solving our problems will not solve the world's problems with climate change.
I was very
genuinely
surprised to hear
appreciate
that.
it. Very surprised.
I was like, wow. Even if we did everything perfect today, we're still only 15%.
Yes. He also then talked about like how long he's spoken to Xi Jinping, how much time he's spoken to Xi Jinping, which I just think is very odd.
Yeah, remember when we villainized Trump
on that.
for being buddies with Xi Jinping?
With Putin, too, how much time he talked to Putin, all he did these things, right?
That was one of the big flubs that he had.
Yes, and this is when Joe Biden said that he told Xi Jinping that he was going to defend America's interests on all platforms, and that we wanted, or across the board, and that we welcomed competition, but we didn't want conflict. And especially with IP theft and unfair trade practices, these are things that we're not going to stand for.
The Chinese Teslas are not doing so hot.
Yeah, and then this is when I have the first 45, 50.
Oh, you got timestamps.
Yes, because this is when he started talking about America like standing up for human rights abuses, and so that's what this is, and we're actually going to have our timer reset here in just a minute. So before it does, I want to remind everybody that we talk about these things all the time. Colin has a whole list of tweets here because he live tweeted the presidential address, the State of the Union. So we talk about these things all the time on our personal social media. You can find us. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Colin is a Big Bird Offie on both of those things. You can find all of this on our website at saltofthestreets.com, where you can also find our YouTube link. Obviously, you're watching us on YouTube at Salt of the Streets. We have our Instagram at Salt of the Streets and our Facebook at Salt of the Streets. If you're watching this video on YouTube right now, leave us a comment and a like. Tell your friends about it so they can help find it. If you're listening to us in a podcast form, leave us a rating and a review so that also helps people find it. If you send me a screenshot of the review, I will send you a t-shirt. If you can tell me what the closing line of this episode is from, I will send you a signed t-shirt. It will be fantastic. If you're in the Kitsap County area, get your haircut at Swell Blended. Just go to swellblended.com. And if you skate, go to Location Skate Shop in downtown Bremerton right next to the Roxy. It is a beautiful time. Now, this is a piece from Joe Biden talking about defending American values with China.
Are being so blatantly violated. An American president, no responsible American president, could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea. The most unique idea in history. We are created, all of us equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle and in fact say we're dealing with the American idea. With regard.
Okay. So, we talked about how 2 months ago, Joe Biden, thank you very much, said, referred to the concentration camps in China as a cultural difference. And now he's talking about how no American president, no responsible American president could remain silent while human rights abuses are so blatantly, that's insanity. That is insanity.
Definition of.
Are allowing American companies to make films in the very districts that people are being hemmed up. For Joe Biden to talk about, no, a president could not stand by and do this. You're fucking lying.
You're doing it right now.
You are doing it right now. What are we doing in China? Are you holding them accountable for human rights abuses?
We're not even holding ourselves accountable for human rights abuses.
They're stealing people's organs. They're stealing people's
Yep.
organs. They're stealing their hair. They're killing people. Are we doing anything about that?
You know what I would like to see? Sanctions on U.S. companies that do businesses with China.
But we can't leave Afghanistan because women's rights. Because of human rights.
Because of women's rights.
God damn it, we can't leave Afghanistan. What about the women? What about the women? What about the forced sterilization of Uyghur Muslims in China because America won't say anything? Because no one will fucking say anything because everybody buys shit from China. It's crazy. The idea now that, like, well, no one could stand by. You're doing it. You're actively doing it right now.
Because we've allowed our entire economy to be totally reliant on China and their
Yes.
production of goods and services.
Immediately after this, they didn't talk about how important it is to leave Afghanistan.
Yes.
He then said without saying the mission is accomplished.
Yes.
We've done everything we can there. We went there to deal with terrorism, and we did it.
She's cruising. She's around.
Working her way around.
Yeah. She's
Chilling.
exploring and seeing things.
Having a good time.
She keeps attacking my foot every now and again.
She's around here somewhere.
Yeah. She's fine. Awesome. Thank you, love. Bought a
And then talked about, right, how... Sorry, go ahead.
I would say we bought a litter box. She did
Yes.
today, but it's too big for her to get into right now.
You have to, like, push her into
So we got she went through the garage and found a really old dog dish that's really big.
Nice.
And it's perfect for
Good
like a
starter
little
litter box.
kitty litter box.
There you go.
Love it. You just set it
I
down.
was going to say, anywhere over here is probably... She's around here somewhere.
Yeah. She's cruising.
She was to Colin's left.
Yeah. Oh, she's hanging out back there because Chloe's like zoned in on her. She's like, "What is that?" Don't worry, babe. She's fine.
So Joe Biden then detailed how we went there to find the Taliban and to hunt down terrorists, and then it metastasized and it turned into ISIS, and now ISIS is all over the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't let we're not going to let terrorism rest. I can't remember exactly what he said, but talked about how they're not going to let that just go away.
Yeah.
So are you saying we're going to leave Afghanistan so that we can increase our military presence in Africa, in North Africa? He's talking about Somalia, like all these different countries. So are we going to?
Yep.
We're going to go there instead. Is that what you're saying?
The implication I got too was that as he said we'd be leaving, but like and I should have written down exactly what he said, but there was some verbiage in there that made it sound like special operators and contractors are still going to be on the ground.
Yes.
And I was like, so basically nothing's going to change?
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me?
I feel like
'Cause I don't understand we all kind of knew I wouldn't say we knew, but if I was to place a bet, and I think we talked about it on the last episode, of whether or not we will actually be leaving Afghanistan during that time period, I was going to say no. Something is going to happen, and we will. Joe Biden there's no way he's going to allow us to militarily withdraw from Afghanistan in the Middle East.
No.
Period. Buddy Dakota. Shout out Dakota.
Right.
I don't know where he's being stationed at or where he's being sent to. I would assume probably Iraq at some point. Because, May 1st is right around the corner. Was it May 1st or May 5th? I think it was May. Early May.
May 1st. The Trump agreement was
Yeah.
May 1st, I
So
think.
the treaty is still in effect. And we are, per Joe Biden's orders, we are going to break the treaty. 100%. Whether or not it was feasible to actually leave May, that's a totally different conversation. But something is going to happen, and you are kidding yourself if you think boots are not going to be on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's the implication I got from that is, oh, we're just not going to really change anything. We might change the dynamic of how we present what is actually happening there, but that's it.
Yeah, so I am hard-pressed to believe that we won't be in active military conflicts in those other areas, even if it's just, like you said,
there's no way.
Operators, special forces, whatever it is.
I mean, the minute we pull out, Russia's going to move in, and there's no way they can allow that to happen.
No.
There's no way they allow that to happen.
After that, they said they wanted to pass police reform, which we already talked about.
Yep.
They have been saying this for weeks. They're like, oh, yeah, we'd love to. We'd love to. You know, even though Kamala Harris is the one that made sure that Tim Scott wasn't able to get his plan to the floor to even be debated.
Yes.
So that's pretty interesting. And then he said, oh, I understand you guys have different ideas. I'm open. I want to hear everything that everybody has to say.
Let's argue about it.
Yeah,
Let's debate
absolutely.
Yeah, that would be nice.
They said they want to pass the Equality Act. We talked about the Equality Act a little bit. They said the gun violence is an epidemic. And said that the assault weapons ban worked, which it didn't. There was actually the funniest thing is he referred to this government study that they did that said that it didn't work.
Yes.
And he's like, read the report. It said that it worked. Actually, it didn't. It said at the end they found no noticeable difference in gun violence because of the assault weapons ban.
Yep.
So that's pretty interesting. A government-funded report.
Yes.
Right? So there's that.
He brought up the 100-round magazine. Why would anybody need a 100-round magazine? And they zoomed right in on Lauren Boebert. Is that her name? Lauren Boebert? The freshman congressman who got all, she said she was going to carry inside the Capitol. They went right on her, and she's just shaking her head like, no, man, don't do this.
He also said ghost guns show up at crime scenes and can't be traced. Except they don't, because Jen Psaki didn't even have numbers to talk about the amount of ghost guns. There's one study, and Steven Crowder has talked about this too, one study that was actually a report of a reporter asking an ATF agent about the amount of guns that they found that they can't trace. So not ghost guns, untraceable guns, which also is unserialized guns where the serial number isn't registered. So stolen guns, any of these stolen guns that can't be tracked to the right person, those are all guns that cannot be traced.
Yep.
Not just ghost guns, right?
Yeah, I would highly doubt.
They continue. The idea, again, the idea that somebody who wants to commit a crime is taking the time. They're like, we've done it as little as 30 minutes. It's not going to work.
Nope.
It's not. It's guns are
Joe Biden doesn't understand anything about technology.
Very particular.
Yes.
Very finicky. You can have too much buildup in something and make it not work. If you do not have it drilled out the right way, it won't fucking work. There are whole Facebook pages of people who can't get their G80s to work. They're 80% guns. Whole fucking Facebook pages of people who can't get them to work because they're regular everyday dudes who just aren't fucking doing it right.
Yep.
So the idea that some random fucking guy who wants to commit a crime is going to invest the money and time, because it doesn't cost that much less than a real gun.
No.
Like a proper already finished gun. I mean, it's could possibly cost you more.
It's way more difficult. It's going to be way more expensive to make the initial investment in the 3D printing, the CAD files.
Well, and
the
even
material to
even
use
if
it.
you're just talking about a polymer 80 kit, one that you can buy, the P80 kits only come with.
Now we're definitely not on YouTube anymore.
No, the P80 kits only come with this bottom part here and the internals. And so some of it's unfinished, you have to knock some of the plastic out, and then they have the internals. But you still need all of this up here.
Yep.
There's still 3 other pieces that are going to go into this that you have to make the gun work. They will not work without these things.
And in a pistol, is that the only portion that is serialized?
There's the number here, and then there's also this one inside. And so it's in a finished pistol, but these are different numbers. So
yeah, that makes sense too, because you
the
can have
serial
different
number is on this little bottom
on the
plate
inside
on
of the barrel.
side, and then there's
that's not even the barrel actually.
No, the inside of the slide right there, and then there's a little metal plate that's hidden by this light, so you can't see it right now. In there, you can see where it would be. That's right, the metal plate that you can see the indentation of the numbers in the right light, but it's covered up by the light that I have here. But yeah, so the P80 kits even are just this. So even after you have this, you still have to go and buy a barrel. You got to buy a slide. You have to buy a spring. They don't come generally as the entire thing, and if they do, it's $600.
Oh yeah.
Because the whole thing costs that much money. So even that one, right? The one they're talking about, that's $150. Only is this here. It's the bottom part that has the internals to make this. No, Not
Yeah.
even a trigger assembly. Just the internals.
And
so
it's
these
super
kits,
dangerous.
this is what you can buy at a store. That's what you can buy at a gun store. So all this stuff about you can go into a store and buy one and have one in 30 minutes. Only if you already invested the money and the time to have this sent to your house, this sent to your house, and this sent to your house. Plus the trigger assembly.
Yep.
That's the only way that you can go to the store, pick one of these up, and have a gun in 30 minutes. That's the only way. That's it.
I really like this concept.
That's the only way that it can be done.
I was slightly unfamiliar with this whole P80 kit.
And so again, slides for a Glock is like $200.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about $200, at least $100 for a barrel, at least for like a cheap ass barrel. So even if you're going the most budget as possible, because your only intent is to commit a crime afterwards,
Yep.
you're still talking about that's $150. This is $200. Barrel's $100. $450, $550 for a crime that they're not going to trace you on. That you're going to commit a crime anyway. You can buy a high point for $300.
That is totally nonsensical.
What are we talking about?
Yep.
What are we talking about?
We're having a conversation based in no fact at all.
No.
That's exactly what that is. Man, I'm really liking these P80 kits, by the
Fuck
way.
yeah.
Oh, buddy. Because that, like, to me, that is a way for a law-abiding citizen to slowly build out a gun so that he doesn't have, you could spend the $150 to $200 per month as you get paid,
Yes.
and slowly build it up, and it's a way to afford a pistol that you may not be able to go pay $600 up front for.
Yeah, because
know?
a Glock, because these ones that Colin has shown, they're Glock clones. Like that's what they're called. They're often called G80s because they look like Glocks. They're Glock clones.
I see
A
G80, P80.
Yeah. If you try and buy a holster for it, you're going to buy a holster for a G80.
Yeah.
That's what you're buying it for. Because when you buy it, a holster or a Kydex holster, they're going to be model specific, And so, so you're going to be looking for a holster for a G80. And because that's what it is. It's a Glock, a polymer 80 Glock.
God, that is sexy.
With the chassis on there? Yeah, it's fucking
Ooh,
beautiful.
I'm going to have to show that to the people because that
Yes.
is whoa,
Yeah, with the chassis.
hot dog.
Yeah. So you're even buying it for a G80. So
me all hot
it's
and bothered.
nonsense. Like that's a lie.
Yep.
Not that it couldn't be done, but the idea that somebody is doing that simply to commit a crime with that firearm, I'm sure that it's happened, but it's got to be extremely rare.
Yeah.
It's counter to the idea of just trying to commit a crime, like going through all of that, the amount of time you can't.
Yeah, because crimes are
even if
generally
you're
of opportunity.
And even if you're buying this stuff in a store, it's going to cost you more than I just laid out to buy all those pieces in a store. If you're going to buy the P80 kit in the store, and then you're going to buy all the barrel and all the shit in a store, it's going to cost more than what I just laid out online. So you're talking about way more than what you're going to buy for, or way more than you're going to pay for a regular Glock.
yeah,
It doesn't make any sense.
it's more of a hobby thing, right?
That's what I'm saying.
100%.
Like,
it
doesn't make any
I
sense.
had a conversation with a
I
guy
don't even have
today
statistics on it.
about I went to a job site and this guy was it was early in the morning. He was just kind of getting there and stuff like that, and he pulled out his little gas-powered RC car, little
Yeah.
off-road thing, and he's like whipping it around. This thing hauls ass, and it was so cool. He was like jumping off little things, this, that, and the other thing, and he was like, "Yeah, man, but it's so expensive."
She's getting quick up here.
She is. She's learning. She's a cat. She's learning quick. Oh gosh, Chloe. Oh,
Go
my
on,
gosh.
Mama.
All right, kiddo. Come on. Turn around. Go back. Release the hounds. But it's like all hobbies. You'll spend more to have fun with the hobby, to build up the gun, to build up the RC car, to whatever it is you're doing, I got into the diorama thing for a while. And I just got paid, so I'm going to go out and buy the rest of the materials I need to kind of finish those things.
Yeah.
But like that stuff, it's hobbies cost money, and when you're talking about a quote-unquote ghost gun, most of the time you're talking about is a hobby build,
Yeah.
which is going to cost you more in the long run, and somebody that wants to go out and commit a crime is not going to spend the time and the dollars to do that.
Oh, it's
How many mass shootings, out of all the ones that have happened this year, how many of them have been committed by ghost guns?
Not one.
Not one. How many of them are committed with 100-round magazines?
Not one.
Not one. What the hell are we talking about?
no.
It's totally nonsensical.
And the only practical purpose, there are very few practical purposes for a 100-round magazine, which doesn't mean
Yeah.
people shouldn't have them, but most people have them for fun. Like
Yeah.
most people have them because you want to mag dump 100 rounds because when things aren't crazy, ammo is relatively cheap. So to mag them 100 rounds is not like
And it's fun.
it's fun.
It's fun. It's fun because you're going to take it to the range and you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, there are other life and liberty reasons that someone would want to have like a 100-round drum mag for the same reason that someone want to have a fucking auto sear. You know, it's
the same reason anyone would probably want to purchase a firearm at all.
Yeah. So
Right.
and it's the same thing for like a machine gun, right? There in the military there are very limited practical applications for a machine gun.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Very
why
limited.
most people don't carry them.
Yep.
The rifles they carry have the capability for full auto, but even then most people don't use full auto on their M16s. Like that's
it's a
not
waste
on
of
their
ammunition.
M4s, and it's not as accurate. You know what I'm saying? It's not as effective.
Yep.
So
The only accurate round fired from an AK-47 is the first one. That's
and
that's an old saying.
the point in I've never been in the military, so take that for what it is. But the point generally of a machine gun in the military is for fire suppression, like
Yes.
it's for cover. Like that's why you have that. Is to just unload rounds so that people don't want to lift their head up and try and shoot.
Yep.
To help people move, to help get cover. Like that's what the point of that weapon is. You know,
it is.
that's would be the same practical application for a 100-round drum mag. You know, so. Most people have them for fun because the idea or the circumstance that would warrant one is extremely limited.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea that someone shouldn't be able to have something because you don't like that they're using it for fun is stupid.
Yeah.
That's it's stupid.
And it goes back to that liberty conversation we've been talking about. Stay out of people's business.
Yeah.
If it ain't yours, stay out of it. There was one point, and it was relatively early on because it's pretty early in my live tweets. It was after the Buy American. It's been the law since the 30s.
Yeah.
You know, which what he's talking about there being in law is the government buying things. And so, like when you're in the military and you want to buy things, you got to buy American. It's literally the law.
Yes.
There's basically the government equivalent of an Amazon.com where you can go on and order things from a number of purveyors and all this. Except it's done like a government Amazon. It's
There
a terrible,
is
clunky piece of
a
crap.
movie called War Dogs.
Yes.
That's centered largely around that database that you can list. Defense contractors can list goods and services that they have, and that's just for defense stuff. There's this for everything the government would need to buy, but specifically for defense, there's one portal.
Government Service Agency, I believe.
Yeah, and so there's one portal that they go to where all of the defense contractors list their contracts, their bids, their equipment, their anything they have, and the government goes and buys it off of there, and that's it. Or list things that they need, contracts available, and then the contractors go and pick up those contracts or bid on the contracts.
Yep.
It works in all directions.
There was a point, and I'm curious if you remember this off the top of your head. When you were watching it, was there a point that you remember somebody's cell phone ringing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wrote that in there, and I was like, whose phone is ringing
Yeah,
during the
that's
State
pretty
of the
funny.
Union? Because everybody was kind of looking around like, oh, God. And it was one of those, like, default ringtones.
Yeah.
And, of course, everybody in that, in there is like 1,000 years old, so it's at full blast,
Yeah.
and you can hear it going.
After that is when Joe Biden said that no amendment of the Constitution is absolute. We already talked about that, so I'm not getting into it. We talked about it in the beginning. He said from the beginning you couldn't have whatever weapons you want. It's wrong.
Lies.
Completely wrong. They then talked about high-tech border security and investing in the root cause of immigration. Again, something else that we need to remember. We're talking about all the money that we spend in all these other countries and how much money in the CARES package went to all these other countries and all this stuff. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
We're talking about, and we also talked about this like 2 weeks ago, the last time we were here, and already getting other countries from the Southern Triangle, the Northern Triangle countries, to do border security for us on the way to the border so we don't have to do it.
You guys have borders. Please enforce them.
Yes.
That's basically what's going on.
Yeah, so we're talking about more money being invested in other countries.
Yep.
Pathways to citizenship for DACA and the TPS, against not something that I'm against.
That's a hard yes to me. It's about goddamn time.
Certainly. Passing H.R. 1, that's something that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
After this, H.R. 1 is just a big voting rights bill.
That's when I tweeted, voting law is a state issue, period.
He said that we need to prove that democracy works. This is something that's true. We are living in a time, and he addressed this, in which autocrats do not think that democracy works anymore.
Yeah.
Countries like China are looking at us and saying, you can't get shit done because it takes you too long.
Yeah.
It's too hard for you to get anything done. We are telling people what to do. We're getting shit done. We're making money. We're making moves. We're spreading around the globe. We're the new American empire. We are China.
I would phrase it slightly different. I would say, in their view, like in Putin's view and in Xi Jinping's view, You cannot control your people.
Effectively, yeah.
And that's what an autocracy is focused on, is population control, maintaining control over the population. And by fundamental principles, the government does not control the people of the United States.
Right.
And so that's, to me, that's the way I would look at it from that point of view. But definitely it does take us a long time to do anything.
Yes.
And most of what we get done doesn't actually accomplish anything except for spend more money.
And then we have this. This is the last thing that I have written down here that we should all just take a moment.
Yes.
And there we go, full screen so everyone can see
We'll
it.
go big
Opens
blow
the
up.
words as trite as it sounds. We the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I. Not some force in a distant capital. Not some powerful force that we have no control over. It's us. It's we the people.
Okay, where are those pocket constitutions that we have?
Right underneath your colored pencils.
Perfect. Okay, so
We
let's
the
just go
people.
ahead- Yeah, we'll just go ahead and read.
Let's clarify. This is our version of the ramen guy.
The Constitution of the United States, 37.
Yep. It's amazing how long the introduction is. We need to strip that out of that. That's some publisher's idea of how to fatten this up a little bit.
See, we the people of the United States. We the people of the United States. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I don't know anywhere in there that it sounds like the government is the people.
Yep.
It sounds like the people are establishing a government to help ensure they can protect and defend their rights.
Yep.
Is what that sounds like.
That's exactly what it sounds like, because that's
government
exactly what it says.
Is not the people.
Nope.
We the people is not the government. We the people is in fact the exact opposite of the government.
Yes.
We the people is that's it. They are the exact opposite of the government. The government is not the people. They are the state. That's what they are. It's
dark.
It is another attempt to manipulate and distort your understanding of the founding, of your true liberties, and the limitations of the government. When the government is able to convince you that they are you, your rights no longer exist, and their ability or their inability to infringe on those rights no longer exists because they are the people. We are the people. We are with you. We are all together. We are one. We are the state.
Stalinism.
This is not something that I want to see from the president.
No.
I don't care if it's him, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, fucking FDR. I don't care if JFK comes back from the goddamn dead and says, we the people is the government. Something he would never say.
Nope.
That is in a time in which people like Colin and I are actively fighting against Marxism, socialism, and communism, and the spread of those things in this country. That is the last thing that I want to hear from the elected leader of this country, the greatest country and freest country to ever exist on the planet.
The President of the United States has a fundamental misunderstanding or purposeful misinterpretation of what the entire foundation of the United States of America is supposed to be. And I don't know what to do with that. It's terrifying to me. The leader of the free world is advocating for state control of the entirety of the nation. It's a fundamental lie. And I don't know how an impeachable offense. How is this not an impeachable offense? The leader of the free world, the president of the United States, doesn't know what the United States is supposed to be. He doesn't understand that. I'm speechless. I want to be angry, but I'm more. I don't know.
And I think the darkest thing about it is that it seemed so innocuous at the time. Like it was just like a thing that he said that was meant to like cap off the speech of like,
oh yeah,
we the people is the government. Like that doesn't instill hope in me. That instills a deep fear, a deep mistrust of where you intend to take this country.
Yep.
That's very concerning to me.
Yep. I don't like it. I don't like it. Oh yeah, she
like,
found
what is
all
that
of her toys. Here she got a cool little scratching kitty condo thing, and she is in love with it.
I gotta go pee real quick. Because I think that's the last thing that I wrote down about this. Do you want to introduce? Because Arizona was the one topic, the listener request topic. So let's hit Arizona, and then we can talk about DC statehood and court packing. Kind of, I'm able to tie them in together in a way that I think that you'll really appreciate. So,
you know, I kind of trusted that we could do that.
Yeah.
So
introduce Arizona.
If we all recall, the 2020 presidential election had a few hiccups. Maybe there was there was a lot of pushback against the results. There was a lot of muddying of the waters, and a lot of that seemed to be focused around President Trump and his incessant insistence that the election was stolen from him, right? And I think we've all kind of understood that is nonsensical. We've put it to bed. If you hold the belief that this was the cleanest, most secure election that we've ever had, I mean, you're kidding yourself, because none of our elections are that crystal clear. But that it comes with the territory of being a population of over 300 million. And I don't believe for a second that, we understand that. We've talked about the Time article and the fortification that took place of the election to ensure that the proper people won. And there's nothing inherently, I don't want to say wrong with that, but I mean, I guess that's a fundamental belief or not. But they didn't do anything inherently illegal. It was all above board. It was just a cabal of people in using the Times phrase, got together and saw it fit to find legal ways in which to push for their guy and blah, 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 and all this good stuff. And it's kind of neither here or there, but ultimately one of the states with the biggest pushback would have been the state houses in Arizona. And it got really weird as soon as the recount started and this, that, and the other thing. I'm trying to remember back around the time of the election during the vote counts. There were some really off-the-wall things that came out of the Arizona state houses. Oh, look at the cat. She's just like walking on the wire, just hanging. Oh, little meow. Little meow.
I'm scared.
And so it didn't surprise me when, because we had received this listener request from Dude's Donuts. Shout out again to Dude's Donuts. About this crazy recount going on in Arizona, right? They had hired a private company, Cyber Ninjas. So,
I looked this up last night, not to interrupt, but I looked this up last night because Jordan was like, well, I wonder who their funder is. They have one funder.
Okay.
And
George Soros.
No.
Definitely not.
And no, one funding source, and it's some fucking company. So it's a bunch of people funneling money into a company that's then
Cat just spilled over all these. Luckily, all those transfer papers are unusable. They're supposed to be a light transfer. I've ruined 3 or 4 different shirts because I've printed things out on them, and you iron them on, you follow the instructions, and then the fucker doesn't come off. It's jacked up. So they're garbage. But anyways, Arizona's decided to go ahead and do another recount.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. So they hired this private company, Cyber Ninjas.
The Senate hired
the Senate did.
Hired Cyber Ninjas.
And let's just say it's been weird because they've had some requests for privacy while they do these things, and that has been overturned by the courts, if I am to understand that correctly, to make sure that. And I went on and I watched some of the live streams of the counting and stuff like that. So you can actually sit there and watch.
There are 9 cameras.
There's a lady on YouTube that had this channel where she was running these things.
OAN is doing it now.
OAN
They're
is?
also doing it, and they're also like fundraising for them, I believe. I don't know if they have a constant one, but
I'll just pull it up. Arizona recount. But they have a specific timetable they have to meet, because they have to be out of this facility that they're in. It's a stadium in Arizona.
Stadium in Phoenix, yeah.
And they have to be out because there's a graduation ceremony that happens in 2 weeks.
Graduation ceremonies, yeah. And so the way
weird.
The way that it's set up now, this recount is being done. It's a hand ballot recount
Of 2.1 million votes, I believe, is the number.
So there's 4 different color groups here. Do you want to even just pull up that just so people can see it? There are 4 different color groups: green, red, yellow, and pink, I think. And there are circle tables on the interior and square tables on the exterior. The circle tables have 3 screens at them, and there's 3 people sitting at each table. One single ballot comes from the square table to the round table in between these 3 people, who are all wearing a shirt that corresponds with the area that they're supposed to be in. And so if you're in the green area, everyone's wearing a green shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And
This is the Arizona Central article.
Yes. And so
Show some pictures
a
here.
single ballot comes from the square area into the round area. And when it's on the round table, it sits on a Lazy Susan type deal in between the 3 people sitting at the table, who all have a vertically tilted TV screen in front of them, in which the bill is exposed to them on paper. They then see a digital copy of the bill on their TV screen. They make 3 check marks: 1 to ensure the name is correct, 1 to ensure the Senate vote is correct, and 1 to ensure the presidential vote is correct. It is then turned to the second person at the table, who does the exact same thing. It is then turned to the third person at the table, who does the exact same thing. It is then taken swear to God, every 100 ballots. And it may sound like I'm making fun of it. I'm not. I'm really just detailing the process. It is then, after every 100 ballots, that batch is taken to another person, who it's run through a computer. No, it's all done by hand. So then someone verifies that all of the tally marks match, and that at least some percent of them, 2 of them match, and some percent of them, 3 of them match, and then it can be verified and moved on.
It's so
This is what is
crazy.
happening. Okay. It's also important to note, this will not affect Joe Biden's already president, so it's not changing that. Even then, there aren't enough votes in Arizona to do that. However, the point of this seems to be, and it's a policy thing. It's all different of how you feel. I'm not saying anything one way or the other. It seems to be that the point of this is that if you can show that there was enough craziness or fuckery or fraud in the Arizona election, that you could then extrapolate that the same amount of fuckery or fraud or whatever happened in all the other states, because, similar systems and stuff like that. I'm not saying one way or the other. We talked about when the election happened, there was a lot of weird shit that happened during the election.
Yep.
I think that we came to the conclusion that it doesn't seem like there was enough that would have changed the outcome of the election. However, that does not change that there was a lot of fuckery and weirdness and bad shit that happened during the election.
While you were gone, I brought up the reminder of the cabal to fortify the election.
Yes.
Broadcast in the.
So a lot of really weird shit that happened. So the implications this has for Arizona are fairly limited. The implications it has for potentially the rest of the country are fairly high, potentially. This is the 3rd recount, I believe. They first hand recount, but the 3rd recount in total, and the first 2 recounts did not seem to indicate what do they say?
A massive voter fraud.
Yeah, something to that effect. Massive amounts of voter fraud or something like that. I don't think anybody has argued that. Like, that's been the word salad that they've used this entire time. Is like, there is no significant amount of voter fraud across the country. It's like, well, that's not what anyone is saying. Like, even the craziest of people have not been arguing that. That's not. The argument is that if you can prove enough fuckery one place, then there's a lot of fuckery other places, and we may not be able to trust the system, and the integrity of it is probably not as high as it should be. I don't think that's an unfounded statement.
No, and looking at the overall chaos that took place, mind you, there was a lot of external factors that contributed to the chaos, namely COVID and all the states passing like emergency legislations to change how voting was done in their states at the time. But ultimately, I think adding another vote audit really could only serve to help refine potential voting law changes in the future, to find areas where there might have been problems so that you can adjust them before the next election, which tick-tock is happening very, very soon.
Tick-tock, what's that you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
I'm
want to
just
remind
so
everybody,
good at that.
want to remind everybody that we talk about these things consistently on our social media. You can find me at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Colin is a big bird off on both those things. We have our Salt of the Streets Instagram at Salt of the Streets. We have our YouTube at Salt of the Streets where you're watching us right now. And we have our Facebook, fuck Facebook, at Salt of the Streets. Find all this on saltofthestreets.com. If you are watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like, leave us a comment, and share us with your friends so they know what's happening here. They can also find this information. If you're listening to this in a podcast form, leave us a rating and a review. If you screenshot the review and send it to me, I will send you a free t-shirt. If you can tell me where the closing line of this show comes from, I will send you a signed t-shirt at no cost to you. Even the kids out there and you need a haircut, go and check out Sext.
Don't sext him.
Don't. He has a girlfriend. Don't do that. Send a message to Swell Blended. Get your haircut, swellblended.com. If you need a skateboard, go to Location Skate Shop in downtown Perton, right next to the Roxy.
That's Swell Blended, SWELL Blended?
Yep.
Okay.
BLENDED.com, swellblended.com. And he just revitalized everything, so his website, even better than it was before. It's cleaner. It's really easy to set up an appointment. You can pick the date, time. He even displays the time still available, everything. It's a great website.
Look at that. We showcased it last week. We'll do it again because it's so good.
Yeah, just go down to the bottom.
Boom.
Boom.
Book now. There's
Right
your
there.
appointments.
You pick if you want a basic haircut or if you want that fucking legit shit. So he'll give
Custom
you
tailored.
list everything that's included, the amount of time that it will take, the price, everything. Yeah, no, it's all there. It's
$45, an hour and a half gets you a detailed consultation, a shampoo, advanced shear work, clipping work, aka fading, line-up, straight razor work, choice of facial hair service, eyebrow service, hot towel and a shave, educational style session with product. That is a fucking deal if I ever heard one.
Yeah. And you guys have seen me. I've been getting my haircut with him for like a year now.
Oh, yeah.
It's been I literally haven't walked out and been like, oh, I wish it was like this. No, I have seen him pick individual hairs out and trim them. I have had trouble doing my own hair the first time afterwards. Like, that's part of why I got the hard part cut in there, is because it's easier for me to do my hair because...
Get some unruly action going on in there.
And it's like he does such a good job at parting it that, like, individual hairs will flop to the other side. Yes, I'm telling you.
I need to get on this.
It was easier to just get a hard part because his line is so perfect, it's difficult for me to recreate if I don't have a hard part. Yeah.
And that's because he's so good at what he does,
the
art form,
that
he will style your hair to the way your hair is, like, it grows.
Yes.
I am so excited about this. I'm about to get on this bandwagon because I feel bad that I haven't been doing it. I've been real bad about haircuts recently. And
you wait a super long time and then you finally go because you're like, okay, I have to get a haircut now.
Go.
Yeah.
Wife's going to divorce me if I don't get my haircut now.
I've been doing it for long enough that I just know I'm like, okay, in like 2 weeks I'm going to need a haircut. So I just hit it up. And
so hit up Paul,
swellblended.com. Yeah, and he has hoodies on the way. He had hoodies like last week and they sold out in like an hour.
Hustle. This dude is an inspiration.
All about it. Yeah.
I love it.
So Arizona, like we said, the implications that it has for the state itself are fairly limited. However, it potentially has implications for other elections around the country.
Yep.
Definitely something to consider.
Especially if H.R. 1 gets passed.
Yeah, and I didn't even know this was happening until Dude Donuts hit me up and was like, Arizona audit. I didn't even know that it was happening.
Yep.
So,
and it was like he was on the money because both of us were totally unaware and we were looking at, this is just now popping.
Yeah, and you guys know how tapped in we are. So we're this tapped in and we didn't know shit. No one knows shit.
Exactly. So shout out Dude's Donuts one more time if you're ever in the area. of Bremerton or the surrounding area.
I think their
Get
store
yourself
is
some
actually in Port Orchard now.
Port Orchard.
Yes.
I should probably look
I was
it
going
up
to say,
real quick.
yeah, they just opened their storefront. So, Dude's Donuts. We're just shutting out. Yeah, look at them things.
Ooh. Facebook.
There you go. Yeah, it's in Bay Street in Port Orchard. There you go.
Hot
I knew they
dog.
just got into a storefront. Yeah.
That's a good spot too.
right down there in downtown. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Let's pull up the images here. Welcome to Dude's Donuts, everybody.
Yep,
Look
and
at these.
That guy.
What a work of art.
Yep, that's him and his wife. Those are the two that run the company and own the company, and then that's their kid.
God, look at those things, man.
Yeah, his not knowing his name is bothering the shit out of me. It's like such a simple name.
You know what? I'm going to pull up their Facebook. Because I bet you it's on that. Dude, we could do like a whole show of just straight up shout outs to local businesses.
Yeah, totally.
Bakery in Port Orchard. I'll thumb through here, see if I can find his name. I feel bad now because I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
Good
They've
Lord.
been they're
Look at
making
those.
shit all the time. They're making all
Look
kinds
at
of
that.
shit. Yeah.
That is so money. Crystal Thompson. Shout out. I want to blow all these people up on Facebook, but
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Arizona. We'll be watching because I'm very curious what happens at the end of this thing.
Yes.
I'm very, very curious. So now that we know about it, thanks to again, shout out to Dude's Donuts, we'll be watching it like a hawk because this, like you said, has some possible far-reaching implications
Yeah.
depending on what they may or may not find. So, DC statehood and
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court packing.
Yes.
You said you have a way to tie both of those beautifully together,
Yes.
and it is eluding you at the moment.
No.
Okay.
Nope. I just
getting
had,
prepped.
I had to move one hand from the cat.
Kitty is
No.
getting
So this is from a
sleepy.
video that I actually sent you and Larry. I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch
Oh
it.
no.
The one about court packing that I sent you. It is essentially just a big interview, a rant from a guy named Aaron Belkin, and you can Google him because he's been working on these things for a long time. And I have a series of quotes that I scrawled down as I was listening to him fucking go and go and go and go. Right?
Political scientist Aaron
He
Belkin.
was talking about, that's him, and he was talking about why it's so important to expand the Supreme Court, right? He was talking about that, he said the court was stolen, right? He started by talking about when the court was stolen because Neil Gorsuch was put on when they wouldn't allow Merrick Garland to be interviewed, right? And then
I was the head of the DOJ.
and then we had an even more troubling person get put on, Kavanaugh, who had all these sexual assault claims. And then we had another concerning person on, Amy Coney Barrett. And it would not, so this would not be able to become a liberal court. And then they were talking about it was acting in a very partisan manner. This court is acting in a very partisan manner, right? And then it wouldn't allow the next president to solve climate change and solve guns. It wouldn't, having a court in the way that it's set up now wouldn't allow the president to solve these issues. That's what he said, right? That's why this is so important. Like, all this is so important. And then talking about how it was allowing the Republicans to secure minority rule in the United States, right?
Really?
And by not allowing majority rule to take place, which is what would happen if we had D.C. come in, if we had Puerto Rico come in, if we expanded the Supreme Court, and if we passed a very aggressive bill like H.R. 1, an aggressive form of H.R. 1, he said.
Ooh.
Right? Saying if you do all three of these things, you're instantly adding 40 million people to the voter rolls.
And increasing the amount of senators
Yes.
that would, considering D.C. and Puerto Rico, would most likely be.
Allowed the Republicans to secure the minority rule, and the Republicans were now implicated in the erosion of democracy because of it. Right?
Heaven forbid.
It's going to get harder and harder for the Democrats to control the Senate without this three-phase plan. He said that.
Sure.
It's going to get harder for the Democrats to take control of the Senate if this three-phase plan doesn't come through. Right? The three-phase plan: repealing the filibuster,
Check.
which is going to allow them to expand the Supreme Court, and then stated for D.C. along with passing H.R. 1, but aggressive.
Right? So in
Is
other
an-
words, take all the power away from the states and strictly federalize elections.
Yes, because the Republicans have been able to hinder all of these things with minority rule, effective minority rule, because of these three things that are happening. right? So that's why when we talked about HR 1, I said we'll talk about that later, right? Because Joe Biden said we have to pass HR 1. We need to pass HR 1. As I say, she just
dropped a bunch of stuff
with
down
all
there.
these papers. There she is.
I'm excited about cat life.
We have to pass HR 1.
Yep.
Right? Now they're talking about expanding the Supreme Court. It's so important to expand the Supreme Court.
I mean, even Jerry Nadler had a better argument when he came out with this bill.
Statehood for D.C. It's extremely important because these people are being underrepresented, being fucked over. D.C., excuse me, it's a higher population than Vermont or, whatever the fuck, like the other state. All that said to me is there's way too many goddamn people living in D.C. That's what that says to me. Way too many goddamn people living in the capital. If you don't have a job in the capital,
D.C. is too big.
Why are you living there?
Amen.
Like, why? For what?
Well, because there's lots of jobs there.
But that's what I'm saying. If you don't work in the government, why are you living there?
Amen.
Like, if you don't, it seems like the only people who should be living in Washington, D.C. are people who work in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And not because you should only live in the town that you work in, but because it's the fucking capital of the United States. It's not just a normal town.
Yep.
It's the capital of the United States.
So
why are you living there if you don't work there?
Why is Washington, D.C. not a state?
Washington, D.C. is not a state because in the Constitution it says that the capital should be an area of less than 10 square miles. There's like a couple of different.
There's a couple of specifics.
So
but
that it should
overall,
be separate essentially from the United States. It's a place where the work is being done.
So that way, no state government has control over the federal government, and the federal government does not have to operate within a state. This was back when states actually meant things, right? When you were a state. On that note, DC statehood is a really bad idea, obviously, because we need Washington, D.C. to remain a neutral territory as far as the states go. There is absolutely... Go ahead.
And the plan, just to add to that, the plan to make D.C. a state is to make the capital effectively the national mall, and then to form the state of Washington, Douglas,
Can't say Columbia.
No, it's not Columbia. It's Commonwealth, Douglas Commonwealth. Washington Douglas Commonwealth. That's what it would be called if it was a state.
If D.C.
and then
gets a statehood, they got to get out of Washington, all right?
Will be created around the capital. The capital will exist. To fucking riddle me this. The capital will exist as an autonomous body within the state that surrounds it. But in that middle part, once you get into the borders, you're not in D.C. anymore. You're in Washington. But once you get out of that, then you're in Washington, Douglas. So logistically, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Hard no.
I don't want to, because that's not how it works now.
Nope.
You know?
I have a proposal. Because I do believe there is a problem with the size of DC now, and the fact that
DC even used to be across two different states.
Yes.
Like it so much doesn't adhere to a state boundary that it used to be across Maryland and whatever the fuck. Like
Virginia.
Yeah, in Virginia.
I'll say, let's pull up the mappy poo, and we'll show people what DC really looks like, because it is a very strange place. There is Philly. There is Washington. See, there's a you can almost kind of see
yes, you can see the border of it.
From the Potomac down and around this area here is Washington, D.C. I wonder if I click if it'll say Washington, D.C. No. Okay. So, there it is. District of Columbia along the Potomac.
And then
Maryland.
And then Virginia.
And Virginia down yonder. So, why would it not? Because I believe there is a problem, because their argument to making D.C. a state is there are a lot of people there, because there's a lot of people crammed into a pack.
There's a shitload of people there.
Right? Because it's a city. It is a city. And
a proper
there
city,
are always going to be restaurants and other goods and services that are sold in and around. People live there. They do business there. And due to the fact that they live in D.C., they do not have federal representation. That is a problem that does need to be addressed, right?
Technically, they have a non-voting member of Congress.
Yes.
And I say that because, like 2 years ago, before we started the podcast, we're talking about Puerto Rico. Why the fuck do they even have a member of Congress? And I was like, oh, wait. No taxation without representation.
Amen.
That's why.
Because
America, bitch.
Because we like to steal your money.
So they do have a non-voting member of the House of Representatives, just like Guam, just like Puerto Rico, any of the U.S. territories that we don't acknowledge as real states, but we'll take your money anyway.
Exactly. We're still going to steal your money. Why are we not talking about annexing portions of D.C. into the surrounding states? Why? Because there's a political motive behind creating a separate, the smallest state in the union.
Yeah.
It would be the absolute smallest state in the union. They would
But
have,
not the least populous, and that's
Exactly.
what they hang on to. It
Yes.
wouldn't be the least populous because there's so many goddamn people living
because
here.
as far as House representation goes, you'd be lucky to get one representative to represent you in the House of Congress. But senators, every state gets 2. So no matter how big you
Regardless
are,
of size.
no matter how small you are, you get 2 senators. And what party are those senators going to belong to?
Definitely Democrats.
Democrat. So hence why they're pushing for it.
And that's when people have been asking me about DC statehood and court pack, and they've asked me, like, I don't understand why we would be doing this. Like, what's the benefit to it? And that's the thing, is that these things can only be viewed through political and partisan eyes.
Yep.
It's the only way that it can be viewed because it only benefits Democrats.
Yep.
That's the way that it's being put out only benefits Democrats. If there was, and I'm not going to qualify it, but
Say Virginia's
like
on the other side of the Potomac too, so it
and
would just
that's-
be Maryland.
That's the main thing I think one of the main things working against them is that there is no bipartisan way to sell this.
No.
It doesn't benefit the whole country to add more states and representatives to one party. That doesn't benefit the whole country. It doesn't.
Nope.
Especially a party that is struggling to fight for a majority because their messages, their policies don't sell to a broad portion of America.
Interesting.
Only to big populous areas like Washington, D.C., like, I don't know,
Any
Los
major
Angeles,
metro.
New York City, Baltimore. So
Baltimore, tough town.
it's the same thing with an expansion of the Supreme Court. There isn't a bipartisan basis for doing that. And my response to people who are asking about this, I'm like, what do you think about it? Is things done through a partisan lens are rarely the right thing to do.
Yes.
Rarely is it the right thing to do. Sometimes one party is going to get fucked over, and that's just how this one needs to work out because that's what's best for America. Rarely is that the case.
Yes.
I can't even think of an immediate thing that's for slavery. There was a whole group of people that were like, fuck that. That's a bad idea. You don't get to say in this one.
Yep.
This is the right thing to do, right? And that's not the last time it happened. That was the
Yeah.
easiest example for me to come up with. And even then, not all Democrats were in favor of slavery at that time. There were still moderate Democrats who were
Yep.
against slavery. It's just that
And there
was
was a lot of Republicans that were for slavery.
certainly.
There was, I mean, it was a very, watch Lincoln. I'm going to
So
boost that movie as much as possible, but that'll
Things
fill you in.
done through a partisan lens or on a partisan basis are rarely the right thing to do. And when you're looking through these two particular ideologies, especially as you tie it together with HR1 and with all these other things,
Yep.
it's only partisan. It's only to benefit the Democrats, which is not going to benefit the United States. And not because the Democrats are terrible, but because adding to partisanship
they are.
will not they are. But that's not why I'm saying that, because adding to partisanship will not benefit this country.
Period.
It will only push us further and further apart.
Yes. Now, on that tact, along with packing the Supreme Court, right? The
Yes.
reason it kind of became a big issue for a minute was because there was an actual proposal for legislation by Jerry Nadler and Hank Johnson of Georgia.
Now you're talking about the Supreme Court, right?
Yes, the Supreme Court, because they are both inexplicably tied, like
Yes.
you've talked about. But their argument for it, because Aaron Belkin's is obviously a purely partisan reasoning, right?
1,000%.
And it's very, very blatant for everybody to see. But Jerry Nadler and the rest of these people that propose an expansion of it, they align their arguments in a much more sensical way. They say, you know what? How many federal legislative districts do we have? 13 of them.
Yeah.
Why do we only have 9 Supreme Court judges? We should have 13. So they get to the same number to fix the quote-unquote unbalancing of the Supreme Court, which, again, if you are talking about the Supreme Court and you are talking about a conservative court and a liberal court,
Right.
you are automatically doing a disservice to the court itself, because the court is supposed to be a nonpartisan body.
And
Period. And
Right.
if you come at the Supreme Court in anything other than, like they said, nine justices, 13 districts,
yeah,
kind of doesn't really make sense, because the only time that they really like get into those different districts is like during election times. They're all responsible for certain districts.
right.
You know,
And
there's
so
some things, but it is a much more cohesive argument
yeah.
in that tact.
So let me address that real quick, because that's what they're using to try and
Yes.
push this, right?
Yes.
Is the districts, and
And
that's
it's a political move,
yes.
but it's shrouded in in neutrality.
And the reason that they're doing that is because in the past, right, this would not be the first time the Supreme Court has been expanded or contracted. It's happened in the past, and it's generally been tied with the expansion of the circuit systems.
Yes.
Right? And there have been other times where it's been expanded through like FDR so that he could get partisan things done.
Yeah.
That's why that was done.
Yeah.
During Andrew Johnson, it was reduced to reduce his ability to get things done.
Yep.
Right? So it's only ever been done for partisan reasons.
Yeah.
In the past, it's only ever been done for partisan reasons.
Yeah.
You can argue
I would like
one
to
way or
know
the other,
when it
but
wasn't.
but it's incorrect, right?
Yeah.
You are, I would say, objectively wrong
Yep.
if that's what you are to say. It has only ever been done for partisan reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, especially now, this argument doesn't hold water because the Supreme Court is no longer tied with a circuit system like it used
Yeah.
to be. It used to be that like Supreme Court justices sat on certain circuits for different cases. That is no longer the case. Their
Yep.
circuit system is a completely separate system that's
Yep.
done through the states.
Yep. And
These
we
two
have
things-
federal judges that sit.
Yes.
They have circuit court
These
judges.
two things are no longer equivalent. At the time, even during FDR, they still were. The
Yep.
circuit system was still tied in with the federal Supreme Court system. No longer the case. They're completely separate now.
Yep.
There is no reason to tie the number of justices in with the number of circuits.
Yep.
Especially because we only expanded circuits when we got more states.
states.
And now we're talking about more states, potential expansion of another circuit to
Yep.
14, but 14 is an even number, so we can't do that.
Yep.
We might have to do 14 districts, reshape the whole circuit, so we have 15 now. Now we need 15 justices. This is a terrible idea,
Slippery slope.
especially if you're not talking about doing it through some type of constitutional amendment, which would tie it to that number
Yep.
for at least a certain amount of time until you could get another amendment passed. They want to do it just through a regular bill because they're convinced they could do it, in which case you are setting the precedent for every president after this who can get enough votes to do the exact same goddamn thing.
Yep.
When Noah asked me about this earlier this week, because fucking Noah Garjul was one of the people that asked me about this. He's standing in Bennick.
Oh, word.
Yeah, he's standing in Bennick, talking to Tyler, talking to these people bullshitting about blah, blah, blah. I put some knee back because I actually want to ask you about something. Let's hear it. What
Word.
do you got? He said, I want to ask you what you thought about expanding the Supreme Court. It's like, great question.
Isn't it awesome
Let
to
me-
be that dude?
Yes. Let me tell you. So I told him the same thing I told you. So I think doing things on a partisan basis is rarely the right thing to do.
Yep.
You know, rarely is it the right idea.
And we're like 99.9% of the time is rarely.
Yes.
That's
yes.
how rare we're talking.
And one of the first things I said to him was, I'm hesitant to say surprised, but I'm going to say that I'm surprised that the Democrats are pushing so hard on something that is likely to blow up in their face when we saw just during Trump something blow up in their face, right?
Yep.
When Harry Reid, when Obama was in office, they did away with the
Boom.
filibuster for federal judges, like we just talked about, in
Yep.
these circuit courts, right? Which is another reason they're talking about they would potentially, I foresee, all speculation, I would foresee them then trying to redraw the circuits and add more circuit judges.
100%.
Just a fucking tinfoil hat thing. I don't know. It's crazy that anyone would do that. It's so weird.
'Cause if
Probably
you
what's
s-
going to happen.
Because if you set the precedent there,
Yes.
it sets the precedent for further expansion.
So so I said this. It's surprising to me to a certain extent that they would try and do this when they already saw the judge thing blow up in their face.
Yep.
They had Harry Reid do away with the filibuster for federal judges during Donald Trump. They were able to smash through federal
Oh,
judges.
yeah.
I mean, just absolutely jam-pack the courts
Yep.
with his judges because of a decision that the Democrats made when they were in control of the Senate.
So stupid.
We are now seeing literally the exact same thing begin to happen with a different ideology or with a different section of the government that is likely to have an even larger toll on people's everyday lives and in governmental lives
Yep.
than the original one did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I truly, politically, like at my core, I get it. Democrats are stupid, blah, blah, blah. I truly do not understand why you would try and move forward with something that will blow up in your face just like the federal judges just did. It's still happening right now because all those judges are still in that fucking seat.
Hard, yeah.
They're still there. You're bitching about it still. Why? I don't get it. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense because to do this, you have to be so short-sighted, so focused on right now that whatever happened, I don't even care.
I don't care.
I don't even care,
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Because the logic would have to be you're so sure that if you were able to do this, you would be able to maintain power.
Yes.
And the winds do not blow that way right now. I mean, I would be very, very surprised if the Democrats maintain control of
We're at
Congress.
A 50-50 Senate, my G.
Oh, man.
50-50.
And what's the split in the House?
Oh, it's
like
fucking
9?
slim. Yeah,
Like
it's
not
slim.
much.
227 to fucking whatever, you know? It is slim out here.
It feels to me like it's, you fool me once, shame on me. Fool me
Yeah.
twice, shame on you. It's like, how many times are we going to do this? Fool me 4 times. Fool me 5 times. I'm going to keep doing these short-sighted moves that bite me in the ass 3 or 4 years later.
Right.
I don't understand. What are they thinking?
Right.
Unless they have this maniacal dream of taking pure control over everything and no Republican will ever have power again. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's a total logical fallacy. How is this going to work out for you? Real good or real bad?
This is one of the first things that I've seen politically that I'm like, I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense.
I get the immediate implications. Certainly. You can try and get a bunch of shit rammed through so you can try and make Biden look like the new FDR. I get it. That I understand.
Yeah.
But the long term, when you know
It's
that,
going to
like,
come
there's
back.
no question. There literally isn't a question about it. You know this will negatively affect you. And it might happen a year and a half from now.
Yeah.
Because you're likely to lose seats in the House and Senate during the midterms.
Yep.
Because that's just traditionally how it goes.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't
doesn't-
understand. So either they don't think they could ever get this done, or they have something fucking insane planned for if they do get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes on the back of, we just mentioned that, this comes on the back of a commission being put together by the White House to, so fucking stupid, to look at the Supreme Court, they say, to just see different things you can do about it, like
there.
term limits or, fucking whatever.
They're creating I believe I went through and counted, I think it's 36 members of this commission that are all supposedly bipartisan and blah, blah, blah,
Oh, yeah,
blah.
super bipartisan.
It's always going to be bipartisan because whoever picks it is obviously going to pick a neutral party, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to pick political allies. To examine this thing and present a report in 180 days, 6 months, it basically lands in October because this was signed April 9th. And so we'd be looking at about October, early November for this report to come out. And I'm going to assume that it's going to come out.
Yeah, I
Because
don't see why it wouldn't. Joe Biden said he's going to wait until this comes out to say what he thinks.
Yeah.
Jerry Nadler has even said he's going to, or it wasn't Jerry Nadler, it was fucking from New York. What's Chuck Schumer?
Chuck Schumer.
Said he was going to wait until the report came out to see what he was going to say because it was Jerry Nadler, who is in the House, we should say, who put this forward.
Yeah.
I also want to mention you were talking about the objectivity of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
That, like, the whole purpose of the Supreme Court, we've talked about it in the past, lifetime terms, so that you are separated from politics. You don't have to try and win your job back. You don't have to impress anybody. You don't have to do any of this, right?
You're just here to do your job.
We have seen the last 3 judges that are constantly talked about being conservative judges, and they're going to end Roe v. Wade, and they're going to do all these things, right? We have seen all 3 of them rule already against traditionally conservative cases that have come up.
Yep.
When it comes to politics, I have a hard time thinking anybody is going to be objective. We've talked about this 1,000 times, right?
Because nobody really truly can be.
And on the Supreme Court, we've seen evidence of that, right? We've seen it. But
Judicial
for that
activism.
particular body, I have to try and give them, especially after seeing what I've seen, try and give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they're trying to actually do their job.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
You have to believe that, otherwise you don't believe the the separation of powers works.
Or else it's all gone.
Yeah. It's one of those.
Look at that little basket cat.
Even if it's a lie and we're telling ourselves a lie, we have to believe that. Otherwise, I mean, when you look at the totality of evidence shows that the Supreme Court is partisan and always has been partisan in some fashion, period. And due to the way the court is elected and appointed, Congress always has.
She's just going to fall asleep there now. She had that big old full belly. Yeah. She's just going to fall asleep
real
now.
Tired. In the little basket with her blanket. She's so cute. But I mean, I don't. To get aside from this, right? There's only one way that court expansion and D.C., possibly Puerto Rico statehood can possibly take place. And that's with the dissolving of the filibuster for legislative matters so that you can rule with a straight 51% majority, right?
Yes. And that's what Belkin was talking about, right?
Yes.
He's a political strategist. He's a teacher right now. He's a professor.
Yeah.
Right? He's teaching active students in political science that this is the way to go. This is the path forward, right?
This is the
majority rule is completely counter to the democratic republic that we exist in.
Yes.
As the country was designed, completely counter to that.
Yeah. It's because they don't. Joe Biden said it a million times during his State of the Union. Democracy, democracy, democracy. Our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. We are not a democracy.
We're a republic.
We are inching ever closer to becoming a democracy with all of everything from H.R. 1 to expanding the Supreme Court, removing the filibuster, which just removes checks and balances on the Congress. That's all that does.
And it de-incentivizes partisan work or bipartisan work.
Yep.
1,000% de-incentivizes it.
How about this?
You don't need it.
A speech from then Senator Joseph Biden. I'm not going to play it because I don't have the full timestamp, but it is available on C-SPAN. You can go back, and in 2005, Joe Biden pontificates for almost an hour about the sanctity of the filibuster and its protection of minority rights and how it is the only thing in the Congress that prevents one-party rule. If he comes out 15 years later, 16 years later, and supports the filibuster, I don't know what to tell you.
Supports removing the filibuster.
Yes, supports removing the filibuster. Sorry, it's unnerving, and I mean anybody that's followed Joe Biden through politics or looked into his political past, because he spent his entire life in either basically in the Senate. I mean he's about as professional politician as you can get. The dude is a snake. He's he bragged about how he's always been able to make deals and get things done. That's because he is a political snake. He is not afraid to stab anybody in the back, to stand on nonsense that gets people to vote for whatever it is that he wants people to vote for at the time, which allows him to maintain and stay in power.
Yeah.
It's not now that he is the President of the United States advocating for pure democracy and totalitarian rule. This is the stuff that scares me. What he said at the end of his State of the Union speech was so fundamentally terrifying. Like it should shake the foundational it shakes the foundation of our entire republic, which is already barely held together by duct tape and chewing gum, all right? There is no sanctity in statehood anymore.
Yeah.
It's all we're just pushing ever closer to pure democracy. And if we remove the last barrier that protects minority rights in our people's house, we are 100%, the republic is dead, and we are a 51% majority rules democracy. You keep removing the filibuster,
and that's how it goes
and
forever.
That's it.
I mean,
and that's it. Once you're there, you're not going back.
It's everything done by 51%.
So all this stuff, statehood, packing the Supreme Court, this is all coded language in removing the power of the states to check the federal government. And we are just on our way to becoming another European Union-style democracy. And it's the one thing that has kept us apart from everyone else. It's kept us the greatest country in the world to date. And if we go down this road, we're just going to be another national sheep in the flock. And I don't we can be kind of hyperbolic sometimes when we talk about politics and, oh, this is terrifying, this is blah, blah. This is actually, at its core, terrifying. And these people are in power right now with very little to check them. And all they need to do is remove the filibuster, and they have 100%, 51% majority control over everything that you do.
These are deep, deep structural changes in the United States that are being sold as just a different way to get things done.
Yeah.
Which is not. It is a gross oversimplification of the effect that these changes would have on the country.
Yeah. I mean, we would be a fundamentally different place, where the only laws that truly matter are the ones that come down from Washington, D.C. and are adopted by the states in some parroting manner. I mean, do you ask yourself, do you want the elitist, the richest, most elite, and most powerful people on the globe telling you how to live your life? You need to pay attention to stuff. Orange man bad. Yeah. I got it. Now Biden's in office. Super awesome. We can go celebrate out in the streets and do all this stuff. But this is fundamentally dangerous. And our country will never be the same if these people are allowed to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, so on that note, I think that, did we actually, Biden address, court packing, D.C. statehood, Arizona recount?
And in 3 hours 14.
Bro.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think we had about 10 minutes or so of, wait screen, so that's we're on it. So to close everything up, tied up, I got a hill to die on this week.
Let's hear it. And then we'll go over the first round, and then we'll get the fuck out of here.
We talked a little bit about it, I think, in the pre-show, or it was super early. The sanctity of privacy. It's something that's ensconced in our Constitution, that the federal government has no business in your privacy, except in very strict circumstances. We cannot allow society as a whole to renege on that and make it okay for everybody to be up in your business all the time. You told the story of Carlos and that young person in there giving him a hard time about not having a vaccine and just getting all up in his business.
Yes.
Let's just set this straight. You have no right to know whether anybody around you has been vaccinated or plans on getting vaccinated. Period. Full stop. Yeah. Oh, but the health implications. Blah. None of your business. None of your business at all. I understand that it feels like it should be right because we're all in this together, blah, blah, blah. No. We are America. We are founded on liberal freedoms, liberal values, which, keyword of liberal, liberty. If we do not stand up and defend our own right to privacy, we deserve whatever is going to come after that. And know for a fact that if you're okay by divulging your own personal medical information or your own personal information online or whatever you want to do, that is your freedom to do that. And you're not going to get in the shade from me. Person ought to do what they think is best. Go to town. But remember, you're not the only person that lives here. We all have a right to privacy, and we cannot be forced to relinquish that right, because it's for the greater good. I don't know what that would make us at that point, but it definitely wouldn't make us free. So defend your right to privacy. Read the Constitution. Understand your God-given rights, the rights that the government solely exists to protect. Stand by those. Defend them. And don't let anybody tell you that you do not have the right to defend your own rights. I know it's kind of circular logic there, but if we don't attack this on a societal level, we will doom ourselves to a really, really dark fate. We have to stand true. We have to stand strong. We have to stand by our principles. Otherwise, we don't have anything anymore.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's where we're at. The draft is here.
I think that was pretty good there, Colin.
Wasn't as good as we were About 3 hours ago. It's been a long day.
Sports, it's been a while since we've been here. I just want to go over the first round of the draft real quick.
Because sports, a.k.a., really means
AKA
football for us.
Yeah. So the NFL draft did happen. And honestly, came up to me by surprise. I did not know that it was happening. But the draft started yesterday. The first round, Trevor Lawrence, QB, went number 1 overall from Clemson. That was no surprise there. Zach Wilson from BYU went number 2 to the Jets. He's also quarterback Trey Lance from North Dakota State and with the 49ers.
Ooh.
And Kyle Pitts, tight end, went to the Falcons. The Bengals had number 5, and they got Jamar Chase, wide receiver. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, went to the Dolphins. Penny Sewell, he's an offensive tackle from Oregon, actually, went to the Lions. He's, an amazing, amazing offensive lineman. Penny
Just because
Sewell.
he's a duck doesn't mean he's great.
He's also amazing. he went number 7 overall, and he's an offensive tackle. He's pretty good.
Nice.
J.C. Horn, cornerback, went to Carolina. The Broncos also got a corner, Pat Certain. Devonta Smith, wide receiver, went to the Eagles. The Bears picked up a QB, Justin Fields. They just traded their quarterback to somewhere weird, like the
Somewhere
Dolphins
weird.
or something.
Ugh.
Yeah, Mitchell Trubisky just went somewhere weird.
Dolphins are kind of like when you're so bad, it gives you a chance to rebuild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Micah Parsons, inside linebacker, went to Dallas. Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle from Northwestern, went to the Chargers. And I actually saw a fucking great video.
Ooh.
Paul just put out pictures from my.
Oh no, sir.
Modeled him. So,
Is it on the Instagram?
Yeah, I just got the.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up his Insta real quick.
Let's see if I can find this video because it was fucking funny.
Swole blended. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, sweet, man. He's been doing. Look at those modeling pics. Oh, we know that guy.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's show the people. Swole blended.
He tagged
Look
me
at
in
that.
something. I mentioned you in their story. It's in his story.
Oh, word.
Big announcement for my SOS fans out there. Wait for it. Oh, so there you go. It's just an announcement just for us to. Oh, there you go.
To
Yeah,
wait
looking
for
at his
it?
story right now. Yeah.
Oh,
There
snap.
it is.
Look at that. I
Wait
know we
for
looked at
it.
Next time. Hot dog.
There we go. Do not sleep.
Do not sleep.
Yeah. You do not sleep on it.
Mm-hmm. That's money.
That's hot. So we'll see. Yeah, we do have some things to announce with us and Soil Blended coming in the future. So it's a good time.
A lot of good collabs happening.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what I was just looking up. Oh, I was trying to find that video from the Chargers. That's what I was doing. What am I doing? I got distracted by myself.
No, swole blended is, yeah, especially the picture, man. That's distracting.
Yes.
You look that good, bro. Is this on the Chargers Instagram?
Yes.
Oh, hot dog.
Yeah. And it's a really good one.
We can probably pull them up. The Chargers. Hot dog. Just in case, it might be easier for people there. Ba-doop-ba-doop-ba-doo. This is the best part of the podcast. I'm trying to search through IG posts.
I fucking.
So, for
Here.
all you sports people.
It is. Hold on.
Oh. Don't get distracted.
Nah. Or you're on the Chargers page, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So go up.
Going up.
Go up.
Up, 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 up. We're going. Oh, there's a
Up,
puppy.
Up. Yep, keep
There's a
going,
puppy.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. We're getting there.
This one right there.
Boom.
Pick that one.
Picking.
This is a great.
Look at this.
Yes.
Oh. Ooh.
Is there any play the audio on this? Because
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
here we go.
fucking-
Oh, Michael Scott.
This fucking video is so good. That's a fucking crazy front squat, like 400 pounds.
When he's mirroring and sliding in pass protection.
Oh, we'd like to report a bully.
Because a left tackle can be the future for a very long time.
Whoever cut this video is earning their paycheck.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Whoever is running the Chargers Instagram account needs a fucking raise because holy shit, that video was,
That was
great.
dope.
All these little it's beautiful. That's a fucking great video.
That is
I love
killer.
the Chargers. I got a weird thing for the Chargers. I don't know what it is. Look, that's him That's him right there. That's that kid, Slater. This the front squat. It's like those are all 45-pound plates.
Let's do this.
They got it.
Add a little volume here. We'll play this a little bit. Three times?
Yes.
Look at this
shit.
Look at that struggle. Oh!
I mean,
Beast mode
holy
achieved.
shit. So,
Holy crap.
it wasn't Penny Sewell, but the Chargers got themselves a baller. So, we're out here. I got a weird. The Chargers, the Bills. It sucks because I've been on the Bills for a couple years, and now they're fucking big. I can't even jump on the Bills now because it's Bills bandwagon. When I first got back in the NFL, I was like, man, I don't have a team. Like, of course, the Seahawks were like, I want to pick like a team. You know, like, who's gonna be my team? And I was like, the Bills. Like, maybe the Bills. Maybe the Bills. Waited too long. I waited too long, and now I can't even say that because they're like, nah, bro, you're just trying to jump on. Like, you're just trying to bite. I'm not. I've been on the Bills. I've been saying the Bills. You can probably go back and see me in here talking about the Bills.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. With that, you guys, it's been a great episode. I want to remind everyone one more time, thank you. You've been watching us on YouTube, Salt of the Streets. Obviously, if you are watching this, leave us a rating or a comment and a like. If you're listening to this podcast form, leave us a rating and a review. Send me a screenshot of the review, and I will send you a free T-shirt. You can find us on our personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Call us at Big Bird Offie on both those things. Find all this saltofthestreets.com, along with our Instagram at Salt of the Streets, YouTube at Salt of the Streets, and our Facebook at Salt of the Streets. Swell Blended, who just tagged me in some shit. If you live in the Kitsap County area, go and get your haircut at Swell Blended, swellblended.com. If you need a skateboard, go to Location Skate Shop in downtown Bremerton, right next to the Roxy. What are you doing?
We're gonna close after the line. We're gonna close on the kitty.
Beautiful. Okay, with that, I think that's everything I have to close on here. It's a little bit of a long one. Are you ready?
Am I ever ready?
Okay. I was dating a Macedonian. She was a bit of a slut. Then I find her on a date with a fat kid named Pete who looks like the new fat kid dictator of North Korea. So I'm pretty pissed off about that.
Yeah, no, that's justified. That is justified. And on that note, kitty picture. Look at Sleepy Kitty.
Meow. Meow.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good weekend.